everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully you guys are doing well. This is going to be the April 2023 horoscopes for all 12 signs. Wow, guys, April is here. This is going to be a very busy month. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Although the horoscopes may seem condensed, don't let them fool you. There is a lot of change happening in the month ahead. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I want to first by letting you guys know a little bit about the offerings for the month ahead. As always, if you guys are new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I focus on working both with the art of tarot as well as the Sabian symbols to better interpret what's going on in the cosmos. If you like my work, you can support me by joining my YouTube memberships. I have 3 different levels and you can get in and continue to help me keep bringing you guys long format content, and we'll just kind of keep that going. Please also do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Even if you guys can't donate or join my memberships, leaving me a comment and letting me know where you're tuning in from, coming back at the end of the month and letting me know how it played out for you, or just giving me a thumbs up is super helpful. Any interaction we have with the channel, that engagement allows this video to get more views and get out into YouTube, which helps me continue to do this full time. We have live readings here generally almost every Friday night by donation. So you can catch me here at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we will be doing donation-based readings. So we'll usually go for a couple hours. We alternate between tarot and astrology. You can always check out my community tab and see where I'm posting the link for that so you can sign up in advance, especially considering how active the month of April is going to be. I'm generally always booked 2 to 3 months at a time. So if you've got a lot of stuff going on with the eclipses and you want to get some answers, join me on Friday night and I'm happy to do a reading for you. If you want to learn with me, you can check out my tarot and my astrology courses. They're available on my website. I have Astro 101 and Tarot 101 available. And I believe this month we're going to be dropping the Astro 201, where I start teaching you guys about transits and prediction methods using my techniques in astrology. And do you want a personal reading with me? If you do, I have some openings for both May, June, and July. And this availability is now open, so you guys can check that out. My links are always below. If you go to beyondtheveiltarot.com, you can see my calendar and what is available. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the transits that catch my eye. As always, this is only a fraction of what I'm going to be talking about throughout the month. If you're not used to my format, I do a separate video that I go through all of the transits for the month ahead, give my 2 cents on how it may play out in the world. But for the horoscopes, it's purely going to be limited to what you may expect for your zodiac sign. So this is going to be the most prominent transits. Like I said, it seems like a condensed list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days that I'm touching on in particular, but it is not. Outside of these transits, we're going to see lots of sextiles going on between Pisces and Taurus, Taurus and Cancer. So you guys will see me talk about that more throughout the month. And the Astro Weathers on Sunday, we're going to break down some of the transits for the week ahead. And I'm already working on eclipse videos for you guys. So actually in this presentation, I'm going to tell you guys where the solar eclipse is going to be taking place in your chart, depending on your rising sign. So I will touch on that for those of you guys who are itching for that. But I first want to start off by telling you that all planets are direct, okay, until the 21st of April. So what does that mean? We have about 3 weeks here where we can still get a lot of stuff done. Those of you guys who want to sign contracts, you want to launch things, you want to do things, all planets going in forward motion, basically, they're all direct, really supports us in being able to just get stuff going, right? So take advantage of that energy because we are going to be seeing all sorts of retrogrades on and off really throughout the rest of the year. So it's really, really helpful to get some of this stuff done in the first 3 weeks of the month. As a reminder, also, probably the 2 big things that we're going to see this month is we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. We're also going to have a solar eclipse. So the Mercury retrograde shadow period, which we see on the front end and the back end of a retrograde, will be starting April 6th. So if you want to move, sign contracts, work on vehicles, buy gadgets, Yes, technically you have until the 21st, but this particular Mercury retrograde in Taurus is very heavily aspected, both in sense of the eclipses that are coming and also some of the aspects it's going to make to Uranus. So my advice is try to get this stuff done before April 6th. So you really have like the first 5 or 6 days to work with this if you want to avoid the shadow period, okay? So I want to start first with the 3rd of April. So on the 3rd of April, we're going to see Mercury enter the sign of Taurus. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It is all about pleasure and money and resources and food and what is sensible. So I have a feeling that we're going to be talking more about these things. As you guys may know, the North Node is in Taurus, so we're going to be seeing that the North Node and Mercury are going to be dancing with each other. There can be really important conversations about our values that are kind of coming up, but also important information about our money, right? Banking, conversations we're having with our banks or financial institutions, kind of taking stock and organizing things in regards to our resources. My advice is, because right off the bat when Mercury goes into the sign of Taurus, it's going to start squaring Pluto in Aquarius. That is going to be bringing up some privacy issues in regards to exchange and our money, what we're spending, where we're buying things. We may feel a little threatened in terms of the finances in our lives and the financial security. That may mean who we're banking with, whether or not we feel like our finances are safe, whether or not we're feeling kind of strapped for cash. So just be mindful that while that ingress is significant because it is going into a sign that is associated with the North Node, it's immediately going to come into that square with Pluto, which is now in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius is power, right? So this is the, technological changes that are happening. There's no coincidence that within the next couple of months, we're going to see that the US is going to be rolling out now its federal digital dollar. So they're going to start the process of that. So you guys may hear more about that. I'll talk about that in separate videos, but that may be part of this, especially because Taurus is about our money, our resources, what we have in our purse or in our banking or our checking account, and whether or not we're feeling like we have control or we're being, dominated, or there's some kind of sense of feeling like higher powers are dictating what we can and cannot spend. So watch for that. On the 11th, we're going to have Venus enter into the sign of Gemini. And I want you guys to make a little star on your calendar, or just circle the 11th on, on your calendar or on your notebooks, planners for this month ahead. This is an absolutely spectacular day. Okay, so on the 11th, Venus, which is all about relationships, pleasure, resources, moves into Gemini. So there is a sense of pretty words, love notes, exchanges, options, choices. It's very, very social. As it moves into Gemini, it's going to start coming into a grand air trine with Pluto. So I guess it's technically not a grand air trine, it's just an air trine, but I'm not entirely sure where the moon is that day. I'll have to take a look, but Venus trine Pluto is power, right? Power and big transformations in love, big expressions of love, but it's going to be in the element of air. So it may talk about opportunities to make money or feel more secure in relationships through an exchange of information. Maybe a very big day for the tech world, especially with Pluto being in Aquarius. It may be a day where there's just like grand expressions of our emotions, our love, and our feelings. Same very day, we're going to see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter in Aries. Some astrologers will talk about this as the luckiest day of the year. Once a year, we see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter, but it's not always that we see this happen with the sun in its exaltation. So with the sun in Aries, it has a little bit more extra power. We have a little bit more pep in our step. We're feeling, confident and very active, and we're open to adventure. So this can be a very positive day. Look at where Aries is in your chart. It's going to give you a little extra oomph. But I really feel like between Venus trine Pluto and Sun in conjunction to Jupiter, this may be a day where we get some excellent news in regards to our relationships, our personal goals, travel, or our finances. Now on the 14th, we're going to see then Venus start coming into a square with Saturn in Pisces. So we start to kind of feel that optimism dull a little bit. Obviously, when we see mutable signs, there is an indication that there is change on the horizon. Venus coming into square with Saturn, we see this about 3 times a year. Saturn is boundaries, limits, stop signs, right? And when we see Venus in a mercurial sign, it can be about like how we're talking and exchanging information in regards to our resources, or fluctuation or changes within our relationships, and how that's coming into conflict with Saturn. Now, Saturn is in Pisces. It's a Neptunian sign, so it deals with illusions, having better protection from scams and fraudulent things. So I have a feeling that this can be a day where we're having to take a little bit more caution when it comes to transacting, doing deals. Be careful with relationships. There can be a sense of not feeling the love, or people perhaps feeling like they're kind of like being deceived in love, or they're kind of being ghosted, or they're being put on hold. Not ideal for like, you know, dates, engagements, marriages, things like that, because Venus and Saturn, when they're in a square, they're not able to reconcile, right? Saturn wants us to really focus on structure, and Venus wants to just fall in love. And the problem is with this mutable square, it suggests that there are changes going on in both of these separate areas that are in conflict with one another. Now, on the 20th of the month, we are going to see a new moon solar eclipse in Aries. The 20th or the 21st, it depends on where you are. Now, this particular solar eclipse, this is the first solar eclipse that is going to be a part of a series of eclipses that are going to be happening in Aries and Libra. As many of you guys know, in July, we're going to see the North Node move into Aries and the South Node is going to move into Libra. So it's not unusual to see an eclipse come in before we have this particular transit. Heard a lot of people debate this, but the rule of thumb generally is whether you look at 10 or 18 degrees, if the eclipse is that close to the North Node, then it's going to be considered an eclipse within that particular sign. So we're really splitting hairs here. It's like 29 degrees and so many solar arc minutes, but the sun and the moon do come together at 29 degrees. Look at your softwares, look at your ephemeris. Everybody's going to be saying the same thing. And 29 degrees in astrology is considered an anaretic degree. It is crisis, right? It is do or die. And especially in the sign of Aries, a Mars ruled sign. You know, I'm not a fearmonger or astrologer, but I do feel like on one hand, this is really pushing us because this is the second new moon that we're seeing in Aries, right? If you guys go back a month earlier, we saw one at 0 degrees of Aries. So this is a black moon that happens to also be a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses are active. So we're having 2 new moons in Aries, one at the 1st degree, one at the last degree, really preparing us and ushering us in for what's going to be about a year and a half of eclipses in Aries, and the North Node is in Aries. This particular eclipse will get activated several times because the eclipse will happen before the North Node hits 29 degrees in July. The eclipse will happen before Jupiter hits 29 degrees in May. So we'll keep seeing this kind of come back up, come back up, come back up. 29 degrees does equate to like a Leo degree, and this is in the 3rd decan of Aries, so it's going to have a connection in particular to Jupiter. At the time of the eclipse, Jupiter will be invisible, so Jupiter is kind of behind the eclipse, and it's pretty well known that when we see an eclipse, there can be big things happening, big changes in our lives. Solar eclipses are active, so it's a fresh start, new opportunities, but it can be like kind of this get up and go type energy. I suspect it's really putting the pressure on us to really prepare for some of these changes coming in the Aries area of our charts, which is initiatory, right? We start something new. Aries is very personal, so you want to look at where Aries is. The eclipse I'm anticipating can be kind of like beating the drum of war, you know, out in the world, unfortunately. I do believe also it may bring some kind of crisis situation that we have to kind of leap into and take some kind of action. It's at the end of Aries, right before we move into Taurus. So it also wants us to kind of complete lessons or like really learn to wrap up that area of our chart before we move into the following sign, which will be Taurus. So to move from cardinal fire to fixed earth requires a lot of movement, action, motivation, but it also can bring up anger and frustration and conflict and feeling like we're just fighting through things. So look for those new opportunities. Like I said, it's the first eclipse in the series of eclipses that will be about Aries and Libra. That same day, because it's at 29 degrees, we're going to see that it will be squaring Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, so Pluto is at 0 degrees. So a solar eclipse at 29, a solar eclipse square Pluto does seem to suggest that we're dealing with power struggles. We may see that there is like a really significant event with like a world leader or somebody who's a high authority or who has some kind of political power, who is taken out, steps down, has some kind of challenge. The list goes on. So a solar eclipse at a critical degree, a solar eclipse square Pluto, is going to really actually not just bring attention to where the solar eclipse is taking place in Aries, but Pluto will be a focal point, right? So it's going to be connecting to almost like a T-square. And we'll see this play out between now and July, even as the North and the South node come to the early degrees of Scorpio and Taurus. We're going to see it T-square, and it's really going to T-square at 29 degrees of the cardinal signs in July. So from now all the way through the summer, we can't really take our eyes away from Pluto. Pluto is saying, hey, we really need to change and transform this thing. It's going in and out of Capricorn still for about another year or so. So there's something that's still breaking down, changing, transforming. So more on that. I'm going to do videos on the eclipses, and I'm also going to take it through the 12 signs, but I'm going to let you guys know today where it's taking place. Okay, that same day, the sun will enter into Taurus. So that will be ushering in the next zodiac sign. So those of you guys who are April Aries or April Tauruses, happy birthday to you guys. I hope it's a good one. And then finally on the 21st, we're going to see Mercury turn retrograde in Taurus. Okay, so that's when the Mercury retrograde is going to begin. But keep in mind, like I said, on the 6th of April, that's when the shadow begins. So you may start feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde by the 6th. But you have all the way until the 21st. This particular retrograde will last from April 21st all the way till May 14th, 2023. Now the retrograde will have Mercury turning backwards from 5 to 15 degrees of Taurus. So it's going to backtrack starting at 15 degrees all the way back to 5, go direct, and then move forward. What happens during a Mercury retrograde? We review, revise, we edit things, we make changes. So keep in mind, it's going to be in a sign that is fixed, which means it doesn't like making change. Equally, we're going to see that it is also going to be happening in a sign that deals with Venus. So we may have changes in our personal resources, changes in our personal spending habits, changes in how we're eating, what we're buying, where we're shopping. I suspect many people will make major changes with their banks or their institutions. We may find that we're getting very important emails, letters, and contact from some of our financial institutions. So really pay attention if you get something in the mail. Maybe an ATM card comes and it goes missing. Maybe you lose your wallet or your checkbook. These are all things that you really want to watch for. In particular, if you have any personal planets between 5 and 15 degrees of Taurus, it's going to be very personal for you because the retrograde will go through there. Now, the day that it turns retrograde, I was looking at the chart, Mercury, the moon, and Uranus will all conjunct at 15 degrees of Taurus, okay? So that's really important for a number of reasons. But that is a Gemini degree. So I have a feeling that it's going to be about people getting emails or alerts or things in regards to their online banking. I also feel like we're probably going to have issues with ATMs, or we're going to have issues with online transactions, or problems being able to pull money out of accounts, or making changes with accounts, or on and off of investment platforms. This is one of those times that you guys want to be really aware of all of your settings and make sure everything is solid. Now, when the moon activates a transit, it's bringing to everybody's attention like, hey, there's this thing going on. And then it's going to come into contact with Uranus, which is shocking, destabilizing, unexpected, and out of the blue. Throughout these last few years, we've seen with the eclipses involving Uranus and Taurus, the retrogrades involving Uranus and Taurus, we have seen a huge disruption in some of the financial markets. I do think that this is going to make news. Unlike previous years where we've seen Saturn in a square, and I think that that's been, issues pertaining to supply chain problems. We've seen also financial hangups and issues with lending and borrowing and group investments. We don't have that, right? What we're going to see this year is we're going to have aspects that will actually be sextiling Saturn in Pisces. So there is some support, and we're also going to see that there will eventually be sextiles also to planets that move through Cancer. So it has some assistance. But for the most part, the further that I dig into this particular retrograde, I notice it will also be retrograding through the degrees that will directly oppose the lunar eclipse in Scorpio that will be taking place on May the 5th. Okay, so May the 5th, we're going to have a lunar eclipse full moon, which is generally emotional. The moon is debilitated in Scorpio, and that is going to be about loans and also banking, but the money that we owe. So I think we're going to hear a lot of things shifting with like taxes and tax laws and things in regards to insurance or interest rates, loans. Guys, hear me on this. Be very, very careful with your financial transactions around this time. Really the whole month, but in particular, like the 21st through the first 10 days of May is when we're going to see the most turbulence. So it might be a good time during the retrograde to really ask yourself, how much money should I be spending? Am I sticking to a budget? What can I pay off? Do I need to kind of stock my pantry? And really go through some of that stuff and ask yourself, what do you need for security? And also to know that you feel, you know, kind of abundant. But abundance is a state of mind when it's in you know, Mercury's in Taurus. Okay, so the fact that it's going to retrograde in opposition to the eclipse makes me feel like a lot of people are trying to come up with plans to like pay off their taxes, or they're finding that they're not quite getting as much money back in their returns as they thought, or maybe they're shocked by how much money they owe, or, you know, they're overwhelmed because suddenly there's a lot changing with their mortgage payments, right? If we see changes in the taxes, we're going to see changes in mortgage payments. We're going to also see lots of people struggle with being able to pay their bills. And I think we're going to find out that inflation is on the rise, but that the federal government or world governments or banks, institutions are trying to do things to be able to kind of rework the system. Unfortunately, I just don't know if it's going to work. Okay, so some of the writing might be on the wall in regards to the warning signs in regards to the financial issues that are going to be coming with the eclipse at the beginning of May. Okay, and as always, we start feeling eclipses like a month before, and eclipses can play out for a matter of weeks. They can play out for a matter of months. In some cases, eclipses will last for years. Because this period, right, both with the Mercury retrograde and the eclipse is getting activated several times, it's safe to say all of this energy is going to be in play for at least the immediate next couple of months. So like I said, ingresses for the month, Mercury enters Taurus. Watch for that retrograde shadow on the 6th of April. Venus will enter Gemini on the 11th, and the Sun enters Taurus on the 20th. We'll have two moons this month. On the 6th of April, we're going to have a full moon in Libra, which will be taking place at 16 degrees. I did a video on this. You guys should check it out. This particular full moon is in aspect to Chiron, so it's in opposition to the Sun and Chiron in conjunction. We are feeling wounds. We are working through personal wounds. And then once again, on the 20th of the month, we're going to see that new moon solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees. So you'll see in my videos who it's going to affect the most, but obviously if you have any personal placements, let's say 27 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, you will be impacted by this eclipse. Also, if you have any placements 0 to about 2 degrees of the fixed signs, you will also feel this eclipse because it's at the tail end of the cardinal signs. It's kind of still impacting the very early degrees of the fixed signs, okay? So get active, get as much stuff done as you guys physically can at the beginning of the month because as we get later into the month of April, and we feel that eclipse and we feel that retrograde, and then May starts and we get hit with a pretty heavy eclipse at the beginning of May, you're going to be like, oh, probably should have gotten my stuff done earlier. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the April 2023 horoscopes. Obviously, this is going to be for all 12 rising signs. I'm a tropical astrologer, which means I practice Western astrology. You're going to want to listen for your whole sign predictions for your rising sign, okay? So this will be the easiest way for me to be able to give you guys the predictions for the month ahead. I really recommend listening for your rising sign, followed by your sun sign and your moon sign. If you would like to listen to your Placidus sign, you can do that. If you would like to listen to your progress sign, you guys can do that as well. So whatever kind of works for you, choose your own adventure, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the very first sign that I will be making my predictions for. All right, so this is going to be the April predictions for Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? Hopefully you're doing well. All right, so we're going to get started first on talking about the transits that are going to take place on the 3rd of April. On the 3rd of April, we're going to see Mercury enter into Taurus in your 2nd house. Okay, so your mind is going to be on your money. Your money's going to be on your mind. There may be a sense of you really thinking more about organization of your resources, your budget, where you're investing your money, what you're potentially buying, what you're eating, all in the 2nd house, okay? When Mercury moves into this house, because Mercury has a connection to your 6th, which can be about organization, health, wellness, pets, and also the 2nd house, the 3rd house lord, Gemini, that all gets funneled into the 2nd. So I'm kind of getting the impression that you're possibly talking about spending more money on travel, vehicles, maintenance, okay? And also maybe thinking about renegotiating something in regards to your schedule or your financial habits. This is the house that Mercury will retrograde in. I'll talk about that in a minute. But just know that Mercury is going to spend a longer period of time in this part of your chart than usual because of the retrograde. Now, off the bat, when Mercury comes into Taurus, it's going to start squaring Pluto in Aquarius, okay? And when we have Mercury square Pluto, there's some intense conversations, there are some power struggles, there is some mental, sometimes like manipulation. There can also be themes revolving around information that is emerging in regards to your finances, and it may be coming from larger institutions. All right, so Pluto in the 11th can also represent this transformation of what your financial goals are, your transformation of where you're investing your money, what companies you're investing your money in, where you're buying things from. And you want to watch for some challenges in regards to group lending or group investing. Okay, so if you're a part of like an investment club, or if you're doing like pooled investment, or if you're borrowing or lending money to other people, things can get kind of sticky with these particular squares. Then on the 11th, and this is the day that I said everybody wants to mark on their calendars, you're going to see a number of really positive transits. First, we're going to see Venus enter into Gemini. So Venus will be entering into your 3rd house, blessing and bringing sweetness to all your 3rd house things. So sweeter conversations, you may have more positive relationships with your neighbors. You might find that you get a really nice letter in the mail. There's a lot of back and forth maybe that you're having with siblings. Maybe you're just really enjoying getting out and about town with your significant other if you have one. Because Venus rules your 7th and your 2nd, I feel like this can be a time where those who are in relationships may have a really awesome opportunity to like get out of town, walk around, maybe do some shopping, eat at a new location, stuff like that. It may be that you are thinking about purchasing a gadget, okay? Or somebody gives you something. They might give you something. Venus can be a ring, a piece of jewelry. It can be something that you wear on your hand or on your wrist. If it's not, anything like that, there may just be more positive communication with others. So you might get really nice feedback. It can be a time where you might be like detailing or beautifying, a car or a vehicle. That's the other way that can work. Venus the same day will come into a trine with Pluto, which is super powerful. Words are beautiful. There's lots of power behind the commitments and the relationships and the alliances that are being formed with this trine. Venus and Pluto in a trine can also be an indication of wealth or some kind of like wealth building. And I like this because I feel like there's a sense of having really strong alliances, whether that's like people telling you they have your back and like showing you through actions, or, just giving you positive feedback and giving you that support that you're kind of needing. The same day, we're also going to see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter in your sign, which is like a super positive, very feeling confident, enthusiastic, excited, especially about the future and what the future might hold. In your first house, it makes me feel like it can be a very active, adventurous day. Jupiter obviously deals with travel, philosophy, and the higher mind, and the sun deals with the 5th house of creativity. So you're going, I want adventure, I want to get out, I want to do something, and really feeling like you want to explore. We only get this conjunction once every 12 years or so. So the fact that it's happening in your sign is the most potent for Aries, sun, moon, and risings. I advise you to really make the most of this day. The conjunction will be felt for about a day and a half. If you do have the opportunity to just like get out and do something outside of your comfort zone, learn something new, share something new, you're really going to enjoy it. Then on the 14th of the month, we're going to see Venus continue to move through Gemini, and Venus will come into a square with Saturn in Pisces. Now, this is a little bit more challenging because when Venus comes into a conflict with Saturn, there's always a feeling of not feeling loved or being denied or delayed and having a difficult time expressing something to somebody else, especially when it comes to our relationships. Now, because Venus does deal with others, and it's in the 3rd, that square to Saturn makes me feel like you may be having issues with somebody not giving you a pat on the back. You may feel like somebody is ghosting, or they're not responding, or they're taking too long to shoot an email or respond to a text message. You can get a little flustered because you feel like somebody's not answering your call. Saturn in the 12th house is definitely a lot of like behind the scenes work. So I wonder if this is also going to be about getting frustration, or getting frustrated as a result of not feeling like you're getting like respect, or you're getting the credit where credit is due. Watch your words, okay? So keep in mind this Venus is still in a trine to Pluto. So we feel loved because we're a part of a group, we're sharing with a group. And even if you're not directly getting recognition, it doesn't mean that you're not loved or supported. Watch for international exchange, like foreign exchange, anything in regards to relationships or travel at a distance. There can definitely be a sense of some things that are rocking and rolling out in the world that's breaking down. Structures that are not solid break down when Saturn is in Pisces, really challenging the way that you either organize or plan or communicate something in regards to your resources. That Venus square Saturn is still feeding off of some of the energies with all of these planets in Taurus. Then on the 20th, we're going to see a solar eclipse that's going to be taking place in your sign. This will be at 29 degrees. So if you remember, like I said, back to last month when we had a new moon that was at 0 degrees of Aries, that was the very first kind of fresh start that you had for yourself. Whether it was new goals that you had for your body, whether it was personal goals, whether you were just focused on fresh starts and, you know, trying to kind of like start over. This is now another new moon, but it's a solar eclipse. When you have a solar eclipse in your first house, a couple of things can happen. For starters, like we can notice that there are changes going on with our body, or just changes in regards to our goals in general. Whatever you feel like you got a false start on over this last month, this is yet another opportunity to really get the show on the road with this new and improved you. Grand displays can happen with solar eclipses in the first house. Like it's not unusual to see somebody chop all their hair off, make a dramatic change to their appearance, or maybe start setting goals in regards also to their physical shape or fitness, especially in the sign of Aries. Now, at the time of this eclipse, we're going to see it at 29 degrees. So it's cusping on what is going to be your second house. So it's almost saying like, hey, something is changing about your appearance. Something is changing within you before you segue and you move into the Taurus area of your chart, which is about solid structures, feeling good in your skin, really feeling solid in the body, because the second house can be a lot about the body. My advice is really take care of your health. Watch your health at this time. Obviously, the ruler of a solar eclipse in Aries is Mars, and Mars is going to be in your 4th house of your home zone. So I'm more looking at this like, are you getting frustrated with family, with roommates? Are you trying to actively get a lot of stuff done at home? Thankfully, Mars will be in a trine to Neptune at the time, so there's lots of release of emotions. But if emotions are trapped in the body, it can materialize with an eclipse in your first house of like having inflammation, having accidents, things like that. Obviously, during eclipses, we don't want to do anything crazy, right? Like if we have elective surgeries, we don't want to do it around the time of an eclipse. But sometimes things happen and, you know, you have to do what you have to do if your doctor is recommending that or there is some kind of an emergency. But if you can keep from doing anything right around the days evolving around the eclipse, if you can, that would be ideal. Eclipses in the first house can make you feel very overwhelmed. So I just want to let you know, just to kind of take it easy, that 48-hour period, sometimes resting and fasting can be very helpful. Remember that with eclipses, there's something that's being eclipsed out that we don't see. And so when the sun and the moon come together, it can represent something in regards to your conscious and unconscious self, your home and your children. It can be about your mother and your father. It can be this divine union that's kind of going on, and somehow you being brought forth with your actions and your emotions. And that's really highlighted also with Mars in your fourth. Now that same day, we're also going to see that the eclipse is going to square Pluto. So many Pluto squares, right? It's like really saying time to change your goals, time to change your goals, time to change your friends, time to change your plans for the future. So an eclipse square Pluto is also saying that this shift in your body is being brought on by some of your goals shifting and changing, transforming. Watch for like emotional meltdowns, having arguments with friends, getting into it with somebody on the internet. Like there can definitely be like lots of like heated exchanges on social networks and things of that nature. There can be combative situations also that are happening with other people who may be in groups. Later that day, because it's an eclipse at 29 degrees, then the sun is going to move into Taurus and it's going to move into your second house where there's focus on money, resources, stability, and security. Finally, on the 21st, we're going to see Mercury is going to turn retrograde in Taurus in your second house. So like I said, that shadow starts early around the 6th. This retrograde will start on the 21st. It'll go until about mid-May. What do I see happen when there's a Mercury retrograde in the second? There can be a sense of somebody buying something and then being like, oh my goodness, I spent way too much money on this. Look at this ad. Now it's on sale, you know? And I want to return it and get a refund. There can be a sense of somebody buying something, especially like second house can be jewelry, it can be plants, it can be things for your office, it can be buying cars, right? Because it rules your third house, buying computers, gadgets, and then being like, I had a huge expense come up and like now I can't afford the payments. If you're planning on buying a car, or if you're planning on moving, or if you're planning on buying an expensive something, I would say hold off and wait. I think I would say that to anybody in this economy right now, but I would really say that to you, Aries, because I feel like there's the sense of you going, I want this thing, and then you're going to realize like, oh, I should have waited, or I could have gotten a better deal, right? It's a wonderful time because Mercury is about taking things apart and reorganizing them, to maybe like look at a vehicle and ask yourself, what repairs can I make rather than going out and buying something new? You know, what is the value if I were to trade it in rather than just buying something outright? There can be some changes in regards to what you're spending with travel. So there can be a sense of like travel plans get changed, you have a refund, you're waiting for the refund, that can happen. Sometimes Mercury can be about delays in resources in this sign. It can also be about having issues in regards to budgeting and planning at work. You may be trying to like renegotiate something here as well in terms of like your schedule and how many hours you're putting in on the job. Usually when I see changes involving the second and the sixth house lord, there can be some dietary changes too. So retrograde in the second can represent you going, I'm cutting back. I'm making changes in what I'm eating. Maybe I'm not going to be eating stuff that's rich or fattening. Maybe you're focusing more on health and you're trying to cut calories. That's another way that this can kind of play out as well. Keep in mind, like I said, this particular retrograde will come into contact with Uranus. So it is going to bring about some sudden changes in your resources. And it's also going to oppose the eclipse that we're going to have in May in your 8th house. So there's a lot of back and forth about your resources and somebody else's resources, whether that's like taxes or loans, inheritance. spousal support, you know, money that you share with a partner. That's going to be going back and forth quite a bit between now and May, okay? So let's take a look and see what your tarot card is for the month of April. Oh, interesting. So the card that I got for you is Justice, which is all about balance, finding the middle ground, what you put out there, what you're getting in return, fairness, karma, cause and effect, truth being revealed, legal truth, accountability, and consequences. So what's interesting is that the sixth house sometimes can deal with like mortgages. Sometimes it can be dealing with like paying things off. It can be dealing also with like settlements and things that are owed to you. So I'm wondering if like the retrograde here in opposition to the eighth house is literally dealing with these things. Generally when this card comes up, it can talk about legal situations, right? It can also talk about karmic situations financially. I think that's involving other people, right? So what you owe others, what they owe you. It can be a time where there's a rebalancing that's going on as well, and you're finding that you're kind of getting your groove back. I don't mind this retrograde for you because, you know, very soon Jupiter is going to go into your second house here, and it's really going to expand on your finances and your resources. And I think you're going to find that just your overall wealth increases and you're feeling really good. Your self-esteem is high. And the list kind of goes on. You know, you're going to have one more eclipse here at the end of fall as well. So you're going to see really abundance just blossom in this area of your chart. But it's not just about financial abundance. I think it's going to be an abundance of feeling like you have freedom, especially with Jupiter moving into this part of your skies. Okay. Good luck, Aries. I hope it's a good month ahead, and I will see you in May. For my Taurus and Taurus rising, welcome to April of 2022. I hope you're doing well. Hello, 2023. It's not even Mercury retrograde yet, 2023. So welcome to April. I'm going to take you through the month ahead and talk about the transits that are taking place and what you may be expecting throughout this next month. I would like to start first with April the 3rd, when we have Mercury entering into your sign. So Mercury will enter your sign. It'll be sitting either on your ascendant if you're Taurus rising, or conjunct your sun or your moon. When Mercury goes into your sign, know that it's very personal for you, right? Because if it's your rising sign, it's literally you as a mouthpiece making announcements, having something to say. If it is a Taurus sun, it can be about your ideas and your thoughts, and it's very personal. If it's your moon, it can be about expressing your feelings or some change going on with your home or your family. But when Mercury enters your sign, it's all about what you think, what you value, right? And Mercury rules your 5th house and your 2nd house. So you're talking a lot about my money, my resources, my value system, and also the risks that you're willing to take with that money, those resources, 5th house. It can also be about your children. It can be talking about having fun, wanting to have more romance in your life. There can be a sense of you tapping into your intuition and wanting to make some investments that can be more speculative. So if you are into betting or investing or gambling, it might be a time where you're thinking about doing that. Keep in mind, Taurus, when Mercury moves into your sign, it starts coming into shadow early in the month, okay? So even if the retrograde doesn't necessarily happen until the 21st, you're gonna start feeling the effects. And it's been my experience personally, and I've seen this with clients, when there's a Mercury retrograde in the 1st house, it does affect the way that we think, it affects the way that we communicate, it affects our ideas, right? And it's in a financial sign. So I could see you kind of starting the month off being like, I've got the money, I'll invest in this thing. Or I have a feeling the market's gonna go this way. Or I have a feeling, you know, this team is gonna win, so I'm gonna bet on it. And part of Mercury's retrograde can literally either be that kind of coming undone, or it can be if money is owed to you, that it's coming back to you. So I would just say, just be cautious, right? Just be cautious. Be mindful in terms of communicating and talking about your money and your resources, because there can be a sense of counting your chickens before they hatch. Telling somebody, yeah, I'm gonna get that bonus, I'm gonna get that bonus, and then you find out that you didn't get the bonus and you already spent some of the money. And then you're kind of eating your words on that, right? It can also be about changes going on with your body. So it can represent testing going on with your body. It can represent some shifts going on with your body. And I have this feeling that it can be also potentially about pregnancy. Because Mercury rules your 5th house, there can be a sense of you either going, am I pregnant? Am I not? Am I talking about wanting to get pregnant? It can equally be that you are going back and forth and changing your mind in regards to whether or not you're really truly invested in a romantic connection. Mercury retrogrades in the 1st house around the ascendant can represent also turning inward and like holding a secret or having a hunch about something or having a project that you're getting ready to launch and being like, ooh, I don't want to tell anybody yet until it's ready. I don't want to jinx it. So there can be that sense of that playing out for you. What's interesting is as soon as Mercury moves into your sign, it's going to come into a square with Pluto. And so we're going to have a lot of planets throughout the 2nd half of April going into May, moving through your sign, which will square Pluto, right? Mercury and the sun. And we're going to also see Pluto landlocked with the square to the nodes. And then in May, Jupiter's going to come in for a square as well. The good news, because there is good news, is that it's still all very much about you, Taurus. Like you have to focus on your body. You have to focus on what you want, what's best for you, where you're going to feel the most comfortable. Inevitably, there is a big change that's coming with your public image or coming with your career or your business. Watch when Mercury squares Pluto because there can be a sense of feeling like your authority is being challenged, especially like your resources. There can be some changes going on at work and Mercury comes into your sign and you're like, okay, but is everything okay? Like, you know, are we having cutbacks? Are we going to be experiencing losses at work? Like, am I going to be able to keep my job? And a boss goes, I don't know, you know, with the square to Pluto. And you're like, oh my God, am I safe here? So just don't ask scary questions if you don't want honest answers. That's really the best advice I can give you. And with Mercury in your sign, you can lean into your intuition and know what to ask and like when to kind of read between the lines and know what is potentially coming. This will make sense as we get in through the month. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Be careful with superiors. You know, if you happen to be going to court, not a time you want to mouth off to a judge. Not that you should anyway, but you really don't want to. Not a time to get into a tiff with a boss or a parent. If you get pulled over by a police officer, be respectful because there is going to be this sense of you having issues with authority and you not wanting to be told what to do. I'm going to take you now to the 11th of April. This is a very magical day. I think you're really going to enjoy this because you have some very lovely transits involving your chart ruler, Venus. So Venus enters into Taurus and, Venus enters into Gemini. Hello. Venus enters into Gemini in your 2nd house, Taurus. Venus is comfortable here. Okay. So Venus in the 2nd is about pleasure, money, resources, security. And in Gemini, it's about diversifying. So there can be a sense of like a second income stream coming in, a second payment. There can be a little bit more extra resources. We always welcome Venus going through the 2nd house because we can really start to kind of build up our money. When this transit happens, because Venus rules not only your body and yourself, but also your service and your daily routine, that Venus trine Pluto tells me that even in spite of some of the changes that are going on at work, you're like, wow, I'm actually really able to make some headway and things are really financially paying off. So Venus trine Pluto tells me that you are in harmony with the work and the dedication that you're doing, and you're really going to start seeing that kind of positively impact your resources. If you've been working a second job or a side hustle, you might kind of really look around and go, now I'm actually starting to make money. Pluto rules your 7th house, so it can be about powerful unions. So if you have a business partner, if you work with a spouse, if you work with a second person, you're going to look around and go like, look at what we've built, look at what we've created. We're really able to kind of see this fully explode in a very positive way. Same day, we're going to see Sun conjunct Jupiter in Aries in the 12th house. Interesting, it's more behind the scenes. It's more spiritual. The sun going into the 12th house does talk about rest and recuperation. You're kind of coming into that tail end of your annual year right before you have your birthday. So things are wrapping up. With the sun in the sun in the 12th house, because the sun's connection to the 4th, it makes me feel like the positive is that you can have more rest and recuperation. This is a wonderful time to like go on a vacation. This is a nice time to even have a staycation, to just kind of get away from it all and get out of the house and just have a bit of a break. The downside of having the sun in the 4th house is it can talk about family members undergoing some kind of health procedure or needing to go to a hospital or a rehab center, or needing to go into a care center, particularly male family members. The conjunction with Jupiter is the ruler of the 8th house. So the pros is like if you have a vacation or a staycation, or even if you're staying home and you're resting and you're recuperating, there's lots of energy for regeneration. There's lots of opportunities also for having like intimacy behind the scenes with somebody else. The cons is it makes me feel like if there is a solar figure that is undergoing some health problems and is needing to rest or recuperate, it could be serious because Jupiter is the lord of the 8th house, and it can be symbolic of a transition that may be coming within the family, okay? I don't like saying that, but I'm just giving you that heads up. You will hear, though, that it is the luckiest day of the year. So I'm hoping it's you that is the one that's having the rest and recuperation. On the 14th of the month, we're going to see Venus in Gemini come into a square with Saturn in Pisces. And this is not like where the luck runs out, but we're not feeling some of the sweetness that we were feeling earlier in the month. Venus is still moving through your 2nd house in this position, but it's coming into a square with Saturn in the 11th. So this tells me that there is some hang up in regards to perhaps a relationship with a friend. Venus in the 2nd is feeling solid and secure. You know, maybe this is like you going like, wow, things are really going well for me professionally. Things are really going well for me financially, but you're kind of hearing that there is a friend struggling, right? Saturn in the 11th is also possibly having you think about, well, who do I have to share this with? There might be this feeling of not being as socially connected as you once were before. And you're wondering like, who is, surrounding you and like championing you for some of the progress that you've been able to make financially or professionally. If this is the experience that you have and you're not feeling like you're getting the recognition or the support from friends, it's going to have you thinking about, well, do I need to play much more of an active role? If you are a Taurus who creates art, or you're an artist, or you are a creator or a developer of some kind, this may also be a time where you're like, wow, I didn't get as much recognition as I wanted, or I didn't get the positive feedback I was looking for, or it didn't quite hit the way that I wanted it to hit. So I would avoid the 14th of the month, because I don't really feel like you're going to get the recognition that you're looking for, and you're going to kind of beat yourself up a little bit. It's a quick moving transit, so it will pass. On the 20th of the month, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries, and it is going to be at 29 degrees of Aries in your natal 12th house on the cusp of your ascendant if you're a Taurus rising. 12th house eclipse. Okay, so this is the first eclipse of a series of eclipses that will be taking place in Aries and Libra. It's ushering in this energy of the 12th house. Okay, so my Tauruses, it wants you to get comfortable with hidden places, the subconscious, sleep, past life work, dream interpretation, shamanic studies, healing centers, travel, metaphysical things, right? It's a kind of like a Neptunian Pisces place, but with Aries there, it's about feeling comfortable being on your own or working through issues within your own subconscious. You're already kind of aware of this energy now because the Sun and Jupiter are there, so you're getting a feel for it. Anything that's 12th house to your sign is something that's kind of like a blind spot, right? Like you can't really see what's going on there. And it can represent you being your own worst enemy or you being your own biggest critic, right? And that you may experience pain or challenges because you're not kind of stepping into your own light. So when you have an eclipse in the 12th house, once again, it's taking into consideration the sun, which is the 4th house lord, and also the moon, which is the 3rd house lord. So it can be talking about travel, communication with family and relatives, having to communicate or travel to family, calling siblings, calling parents, something like that can be going on. So solar eclipses bring action, and this one is at 29 degrees, so it can bring crisis. The fact that it's right behind your ascendant makes me really feel inclined to tell you, watch your body, okay? You're gonna have a Mercury retrograde here, so there could be some changes going on with your body, and if you're not feeling well, I would take it seriously. You know, sometimes solar eclipses in the 12th have us landing in the hospital or talking to a doctor or going to a therapist's office. And some of these places we go to not by choice, so it can be like jail or going to mental institutions. I think with a Mercury retrograde on your ascendant and an eclipse in your 12th, you really want to be taking care of your mental health, making sure you're getting adequate rest and recuperation. We will see, like I said, that Mercury retrograde on your ascendant. And I kind of get this feeling that with the retrograde that's going to be taking place then on the 21st, that if there is a change going on with your body, if there is a change going on with your mind, you're going to need time to rest and recuperate. So watch for that Mercury retrograde on the 21st. It's going to start then. It's going to go all the way until mid-May. If you have any personal placements between 5 and 15 degrees of Taurus, sun, moon, rising, this will be very personal for you. And this will also go retrograde in opposition to the eclipse in early May that will be in your 7th house. So I kind of get the impression that there is like a do-si-do or a back and forth that's going on with your finances or your financial involvement with another person. So there can be a sense of you like making financial changes, moving money into accounts, going back and forth with a partner about where you're spending, where you're saving, paying taxes, all that stuff is kind of coming up there. And it can be kind of stressful. So be mindful of how you're communicating. Make sure that if you don't know something or if you are not sure about a financial matter, just take your time, okay? All right, let's see what the cards say for you, Taurus. The card that I got for you is the Fool. Interesting card. New beginnings, innocence, fearlessness, a free spirit, fresh hope, taking chances, new paths, and being spontaneous or taking a leap of faith. This is the card for Uranus. And, you know, the Mercury retrograde is going to turn retrograde conjunct Uranus. And I feel like this is probably going to be about tapping into your intuition, tapping into something that is different and evolving and kind of like a live wire, and you know your intuition is saying like, I'm gonna make this big statement, or I'm making this big change in regards to my public status or my body or my appearance or what have you. And it can have you feeling like you're on like caffeine 24/7. So be mindful that the mind can be heavily stressed throughout this month. Take your time when it comes to communicating. Yes, there is a sense of maybe having these amazing ideas, and you may have these breakthroughs about what you want to be doing professionally and what you want to tell the world. And you're like, you know what? I'm fearless. I'm willing to try anything. So there can be moments of just like sheer genius, but there can also be moments of just feeling like all over the place. This card for the most part is positive because it talks about fresh starts. And so there may be a sense of you going like, I want to totally change the way that I communicate with people. I want to change the information that I'm putting out there. I want to make a shift in regards to how I'm addressing my audience or how I'm addressing people that I'm working with. Take chances, right? Be optimistic, but also realize that you're kind of coming into uncharted territory. Good luck. For Gemini and Gemini rising, welcome to April of 2023. I hope you are doing well. The month is going to kick off with Mercury entering into the sign of Taurus. Okay, so that's going to be taking place on the 3rd. That is very important for you, my Gemini and Gemini rising, because, well, Mercury rules your chart. Later in the month, Mercury will go retrograde, so you need to be mindful of that. But for the time being, Mercury moving into your 12th house is going to represent something that's more subconscious, more hidden. Wonderful time for dreams and interpretation, really being tapped into your intuition. Mercury doesn't just rule your body, it also rules the 4th house of your home, your privacy, and your emotions. So I get the impression with Mercury being in your 12th house, with Mercury being retrograde later in the month, you're looking for rest and recuperation. Maybe you're kind of in your feelings. Maybe you're kind of taking time away from home, or you're just taking time to rest, recuperate, and unwind. Possibly even thinking about spending more time in nature. When that transition happens and Mercury enters 0 degrees in your 12th house, it immediately starts coming into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. So to watch your chart ruler move into like a very kind of spiritual subconscious realm and then square Pluto, you're going to be very wrapped up in world events, reading into what's happening in the world, maybe reading headlines and news and stuff like that from other places. Maybe you're having a series of dreams that really get you thinking about your faith or your belief system. Pluto in your chart rules like delays, accidents, health challenges. So it does make me feel like some of the more intense things that are going on in the world can be stressful for you. So I could definitely see like Mercury going into the 12th house and getting ready to retrograde as you being like, I don't want to know what's going on in the world. I'm not watching the news. I don't want to read anymore. I'm good. Like I just need to go on like a social media or a news cleanse, and you might check out for a little bit. Watch for there being some intense exchanges with, philosophers or teachers, mentors, lawyers. There can be something like that. Just avoid any conflict and somebody trying to kind of power play you. And try not to get overwhelmed by what's going on in the world, okay? Then on the 11th, Venus is going to enter into your sign. So Venus will enter into Gemini. So Venus will be sitting on your ascendant if you're a Gemini rising. A wonderful time for bringing in more love, more harmony. You're going to be having that essence of Venus with you. So take a couple pictures and really feel that energy, because it's going to bring a sense of like grace, and also I think being very beautifully spoken. So if you have something to say, if you have something to write, if you have a statement to make, Venus on your ascendant can be wonderful. But it can also be great for makeovers and making changes to your clothes or your style, or even your health. Now Venus is the ruler of your 5th house and 12th house, so it might be about playing dress up, kind of playing a role, being a character. It might have you feeling a little bit more sexy and romantic than usual. This very same day, we're going to see Venus then come into a trine with Pluto. So maybe it's riffing off of like that Mercury square, where a little bit of faith gets you a long way. Maybe with Venus on your ascendant, trine Pluto is, working through health issues from the help of somebody who knows how to heal or how to treat it. It may also be talking about the opportunity to connect and maybe even have love abroad. And then finally, also on the 11th, we're going to see the Sun and Jupiter come into conjunction in the 11th house. So there can be good news coming for a friend. There can be a wonderful party or gathering or celebration that's taking place. Jupiter rules your business partners or your romantic partners, and the Sun rules the 3rd house of travel. So I have a feeling there's either like a friend that invites you and a partner to a party. Maybe you go to a social event and somebody wants to introduce you to their friend and you hit it off with someone if you're single. This can also be a time that would be wonderful to go on a short distance trip, or just get out of town or go to an area that you're not used to going to kind of mix and mingle with other people. With Venus trine Pluto and Venus on your ascendant, it's very alluring. So I definitely feel like it's a wonderful time to be able to get out there and meet people. Whether you're looking for friends or romantic connections, you're definitely going to be just kind of reeling them in. Then on the 14th, we're going to see Venus start coming into a square with Saturn. Okay, so couple things. One is we're going to have this square taking place in angular houses. So it is going to be a little bit more active. I think with Venus on your ascendant, at least you're able to be peacemaker or mediator or somebody who can kind of appeal to others. But there can be too much appealing or sexiness, especially at work or within the office. Maybe you're trying to charm a boss or clients, or you're trying to kind of just like network and connect with other people professionally. And they're like, no, no, I'm your boss, it's not going to happen, or, you know, no, I'm sorry, we're not interested. So there can be a sense of not feeling the love with the Venus Saturn square. I think no matter how charming and attractive or kind you are with Venus on your ascendant, you're going to realize that it's going to take more work, or it's going to take more effort than just being charming in order to kind of seal the deal. Not the best time for presentations, not the best time also for matters of commitment in relationships or professional, collaborations. On the 20th, we're going to see a solar eclipse in Aries, and that will be at 29 degrees in your natal 11th house. So, you know, a solar eclipse is action-oriented. It's a new moon on steroids. 29 degrees is that pivotal degree. It's right before you go into the 12th house. Second new moon that we're seeing in this area of your chart. Honestly, I love it for you, Gemini, because it's really saying, like, what are your goals, right? What are you hoping to achieve? Who are you hoping to work with? Who are your friends? Who has your back? What are you manifesting? Aries naturally sextiles Gemini. So eclipses here or transits here are really helpful for your personal energy. The thing is that it's on the cusp of the 12th house. So it can represent, okay, get it all in order, get your goals together, really focus on groups, strength in numbers, coming together with other people. So it may feel like you're scrambling to kind of get this stuff done. But for the most part, I think the biggest challenge of this eclipse in particular is the square to Pluto. So it tells me that there may be a gathering of people that have a difference of opinion on cultural matters, political matters, philosophy, belief system. So that gathering of people together can be great, but it can be a very diverse mix that doesn't share the same philosophy about kind of the world in general right now. So there can be some intensity. New moon solar eclipses want to launch you into something. So if you want to join a group, a network, an association, if you want to start one, doing so after this eclipse is ideal. The same day, we're going to see then the sun enter into Taurus. So just after the eclipse, the sun moves into your natal 12th house, resting, recuperating, taking time behind the scenes before you're getting ready to come into your birthday season. So it'll feel like a lot of wrapping up, right? Especially the next day on the 21st, when we see Mercury turn retrograde in the natal 12th house. So we're going to have the sun there, we're going to have Mercury there, and it'll be there for quite a while because of the retrograde. And then your chart ruler, Mercury, will retrograde in the 12th house. Here's the pros. You can really dig deep with a Mercury retrograde in the 12th. Like, you can meditate. There can be really significant symbolic dreams that can come through. There can be a sense of just resting and recuperating if you need that. If you're kind of squirrely and feeling a little mentally stressed out, you can definitely unwind. But because Mercury rules your 4th house of family and your 1st house of home, to me it feels like there's like a lot of like hiding out or feeling like there's a lot changing with your body or yourself or your family behind the scenes. There can be some mental stress about a living situation where you're moving, whether or not, things are going to be in order. And it might be a time where you kind of go underneath the radar and you're not as communicative as possible. This particular retrograde will last from the 21st of April until the 14th of May. It'll go from 5 to 15 degrees of Taurus. Really watch the day that it turns retrograde, like I said, because we're going to have a Moon-Uranus conjunction here as well. I feel like this is about you kind of taking shelter, right? Taking shelter when the world gets loud. And I like Taurus in the 12th house. I feel like this is a really wonderful time to like go hiking, be in nature, work with having a solid nighttime routine. It can be wonderful to be learning more about gardening and cooking and, really just indulging in the little rituals and pleasures that you have that can ground you, because the world is going to feel very staticky. So if you need to kind of do that, so be it, and watch for some really prominent dreams that I think may come through during a Mercury retrograde in your 12th. Your intuition will be on overdrive with that conjunction to Uranus. Wonderful time to study astrology, metaphysics, past life stuff, hypnosis. It can be a wonderful time to kind of dig into that. So the card that I get for you, my Geminis, I'm not surprised. The 9 of Swords, right? Stress. But this is anxiety, depression, sleepless nights, overthinking, fear, nightmares, paranoia, negativity, isolation, despair. Mercury retrograde in the 12th, right? Nightmares. There can be like past life stuff that's coming up. You can be worrying about things that you have no control over. Here's my advice. Don't sweat the things you cannot change, because you can be creating so much more stress for yourself than is what is necessary. I also feel like it's a time where I would be really digging deep because of the trines that we're going to be seeing eventually to Pluto in regards to your faith. Like, you need a faith routine. You need that 15 minutes of meditation. You need that winding down time where you're having, you know, your private time where you can read, or you can practice your mantras, or you can pull your tarot cards, whatever you can do that's just helping you feel connected to spirit so you don't feel like you're kind of spiraling, right? Watch the anxiety, take your time, get rest, please, and I will see you next month. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What is going on, Cancer? How are you doing? Welcome to April of 2023. Hold on to your shorts. This is going to be a busy one for you. The month is going to kick off on the 3rd of April when Mercury enters into the sign of Taurus. So Mercury moving into your natal 11th house is going to bring lots of communication, information back and forth with other people, friends, groups, networks, things of that nature. Mercury in your chart rules the 3rd house of siblings and travel and ideas and communication. It also rules the 12th house of hidden and anything in regards to your subconscious, your fears, and behind the scenes work. I get the impression with Mercury going retrograde in the 11th, there may be a sense of there being miscommunications, challenges with friends. Okay, that's just a given. Equally, this can take place on social media, so watch out for back and forth on apps and things being taken out of context. If you're texting or talking on, you know, an online platform, somebody may misunderstand something and somebody can kind of get their panties in a twist. There can be a sense of falling off of being on these platforms as well. So you may go rogue for a little bit, check out and take a break. There can be a sense also of just changing directions with your goals, right? Because the 11th house deals with goals. If you are somebody who needs to have a conversation with a neighbor, or maybe with a sibling, right? Something that you've been holding back and saying, something that you've been afraid to talk about, you know, now is the time. If you have not been communicating well with a relative or with a friend, you may feel like the retrograde is an opportune time to check in and kind of reassess and reconnect. Here's the challenge. As soon as Mercury moves into Taurus, it's immediately squaring Pluto. So it tells me that there may be conversations that either you or a friend have been afraid to have because of some major change or transformation that's been taking place in your life. Pluto and Aquarius in your 8th house will bring up trauma, the themes of death, regeneration, letting go. And so I think with Mercury square Pluto, there's like this sense of people being like, I wanted to say something, but I didn't know if I should. Or there can be a friend going like, I've been worried about you. Is everything okay? And you have to decide whether or not you want to let the cat out of the bag and kind of talk about what's been going on and address either a friend or a relationship. If you're going through a tough time and you feel like you need a break, though, I would say taking a social media break with this square can be absolutely wonderful, and it can give you the time that you need to kind of, you know, work through some of that stuff. On the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus enter Gemini, so it's going to move into your natal 12th house. It can bring peace and healing and regeneration in a private sense. So if you need to go to a retreat, if you need to go to a medical center, if you need to go to a specialist and, you know, do some kind of healing, detoxing, clearing, this can be wonderful with Venus in the 12th. So can travel if you're wanting to kind of travel and get away. Now, Venus being in that particular part of the skies, it has connections to your 4th house of home and family. It also has connections to your 11th house of friendships. So to me, it looks like you have either the support or the assistance with either friends or family to go and get this rest or recuperation that you're needing. Venus in the 12th house can be about having love behind the scenes, having a little bit more downtime in private, but it can also be about certain family relationships or friendship relationships that are cycling out naturally and coming to an end. What's interesting is when Venus goes to this part of the skies, it can be really supportive because of its trine to Pluto. So you may find that there are friends, there are family that love you so very much and they want to support you through this time of change and transformation. You just need to tell them what you need and learn to open up and talk about what's going on. When Venus trines Pluto, there is opportunity for lots of power and healing, especially in a romantic or just like in a heart-centered space. If you're doing any kind of like healing in regards to the inner child work, this can be wonderful as well. Then the same day, we're going to see the sun coming into conjunction with Jupiter in the sign of Aries. For the most part, this is an excellent combination. Seeing the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter makes me feel like there's good news that's on the horizon about a work endeavor. So if you're planning on launching a business, if you're planning on accepting a job, if you're looking for a job, if you're going on an interview, if you're just wanting your time in the sun, this is absolutely phenomenal for you because it seems to kind of suggest that in the future, there is going to be lots of good luck that's going to be developing in regards to your career. You're in the spotlight right now, so this can also be a wonderful time to just make a statement, right? You may actually get a raise or a bonus because the sun rules your second house of income and Jupiter represents work. So you might have increased work, better tips, you know, you might get a new status, you might get hired, you might get a higher paying wage. Any of these things are very possible. Then on the 14th, you're going to see Venus in Gemini come into a square with Saturn in Pisces. So Venus is still in the 12th house, it's squaring Saturn. One of the bigger issues that I would see is like there can be some challenges with traveling, all right? So some disappointments with traveling, like you're planning on going somewhere and then the trip gets canceled and you're like, oh, I'm trying to get a refund and it's taking a little bit of time to get a refund. There can be some disappointments also in regards to traveling with another person because Saturn rules others. It's in the 9th. And you're like, I was supposed to go somewhere with someone and they canceled last minute and they can't go, so now I have to go alone. Be very careful with, purchasing travel. Wouldn't do it this day. Be very careful when it comes to, going to foreign places or just like Airbnbs and other things may not look like they did in the photos and you're left a little disappointed. Misconnections at airports, misconnections with people abroad. Maybe there is a sense of back and forth with going on with somebody at a distance and then you kind of feel like they kind of like die off or they kind of get ghosty with that square. Because Venus still rules friends and family, there can be a sense of you sharing your disappointment in regards to what's happened with travel or what's happened in the past with relationship with others and kind of just, clearing the air. Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to see a solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees. The solar eclipse will take place in your 10th house. And if you remember, this is the second new moon that's taking place in Aries. So obviously, Cancer, the universe really wants you to focus on your career, your responsibility, being out in the world, how you are being seen by others. Aries is all about taking action. So if you feel like the last month or so you haven't had as much headway in regards to your work or career stuff as you'd like, this could totally change that. A solar eclipse is about planting new seeds. It is at 29 degrees, so it's right at the cusp of your 11th house. So it's trying to get you to focus on working. Why? So that way you can focus also on partying, having friends, and bringing in more resources from that work that you're going to be doing. Eclipses will play out over time. This one in particular we're going to see it really unfold over these next few months. And it's wanting to bring you more abundance and more expansion in regards to not just your career, but feeling like you're in control, feeling like you have much more either seniority or a say in like where your life is going. So you might notice a much more assertive side of you that comes out. Here's the challenge. When this eclipse happens, because it's at 29 degrees, it's going to square Pluto, okay? So it does kind of say like, Some of these new opportunities that are coming for you in regards to your work and your career is being prompted by some kind of financial challenges or financial crisis. So you may be looking at this going like, I need a better paying job, this isn't cutting it, or, you know, I'm afraid to launch my own thing, but I need to kind of overcome that fear. Squares to Pluto represent power struggles. And I think some of you guys may be trying to figure out how you fund your own business and how you come up with the money, or whether or not you have to take a loan, whether or not people will actually buy what you have to offer. So it's about using that fear as motivation to get to where you want to go. Now, throughout the month, at least the first 30 weeks, there's a ton of planets that are in your 10th house. It is natally squaring your ascendant and also transit Mars. So you're feeling this pressure of like, I got to get going with Mars in your sign, and then all of these new changes going on in your 10th house. So just be patient with yourself. Take it easy. This same day, you're going to see the sun then change signs, and it's going to ingress into the 11th house, shining a light for several weeks on your friends, your groups, your associations, and also your goals. I do anticipate that it's going to give you the opportunity to reconnect with some of your friends and also reevaluate what your goals are. Then on the 21st, Mercury will go retrograde in Taurus. So that'll be taking place in your natal 11th house. The retrograde begins on the 21st, and it's going to go all the way to May the 4th, and it'll go from 15 all the way back to 5 degrees of Taurus. The day that it turns retrograde, Mercury, the moon, and Uranus will all be in contact in the 11th house. So you may want to look, because it might be about you actually, placing a phone call, you reaching out, asking a friend for help, you reconnecting with a friend. Maybe you had a dream about someone and you want to reach out to them and tell them like what the dream was about, and it like prompts like a conversation, and you go back and forth and you're able to kind of reconnect and hash something out. Regardless, because the moon is your ruling planet, when that retrograde happens, I do think it's going to be helping you really get in touch with what your goals are and who your people are. This particular retrograde is also going to oppose what will eventually be a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which will be at the beginning of May. And this can be lots of changes in regards to your relationships with other people or the money that you make from work. And so I do think that there is going to be a further unfoldment with the eclipse that's going to take place in your 5th house, where you're actually really learning to take the energy away from you. You're learning to put the energy into working with others, collaborating with others, connecting to your friends, and being a part of a group. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's take a look and see what card comes up for you for the month ahead. The card that I got for you is Temperance. I think this is a perfect card for you. This card talks about balance, harmony, healing, patience, self-control, moderation, purpose, peace, tranquility, and serenity. Boy, oh boy. When I see a retrograde happening in the 12th house or involving the 12th house lord, it can be about healing, right? Being that Venus is going into your 12th house, Mercury, your 12th house lord, will retrograde. I think it's about finding peace with others. I think it's going to be about finding ways to remedy conflict that you've had with others. I think it's also about timing and knowing when the right time is to have conversations or to really reevaluate what your purpose is. I know it's been rough, right? I know it's been rough. You've had, Mars in your 12th house. Now it's in your 1st house. Eclipses in your 10th house. You kind of feel like everything's coming at you, but this is all in due time. So you can't do everything at one time. And I think what you're going to realize is that through the retrograde, you're going to know when the right time is to reach out and ask for help, and when the right time is to kind of jump back into projects or jump back into work. What I love about this card is that it does talk about the opportunity to find an equilibrium, right? Rather than just hiding out or being like all in, learning to kind of find that middle ground. And I think also sharing with other people where you've been, what's been going on, and what's been on your mind. Okay. Good luck, my Cancer. All right, so I've got Leo and Leo rising. Welcome to April of 2023. I hope you're doing well. The month is going to kick off on the 3rd, and on the 3rd of April, we see Mercury move into Taurus. Okay, so it's moving into your 10th house. The 10th house is about your public reputation. It is about how you are viewed out in the world. It's about work, career, responsibility, all that stuff. So just Mercury going into this house, it's going to be about meetings and presentations and interviews and talking to bosses and what you're putting out there. If you're self-employed, it's a time to really get out there and do the promotional work. It's a time to get out there and show other people what you're made of and like really show up. If you're working with other people, it can mean that there is some sense of working with groups, right? Because Mercury rules groups and others and resources. So you may be talking to other people at work about what are our goals? What are we hoping to achieve? How much money do we have? What are we looking at spending? And all of these themes are going to be very, very, very prominent pretty much all month long, because at the end of the month, Mercury will go retrograde. Now, Mercury in the 10th can also be about business. So there is a sense of like reorganizing business, reorganizing computers and software and technical things that can go on all month. And right off the bat, when Mercury moves into the 10th house, bringing all of this up, it is going to square Pluto in Aquarius. So this is heavy because obviously you are a fixed sign. And you will see there will be a several day period as Mercury enters into Taurus that it'll square Pluto, square the South Node, and also your natal placements in Leo. So actually, Leo, you are one of the only fixed signs that will experience a grand fixed cross. Hear me out on this. The things that you say and the things that you do over the next month will have huge repercussions. It can be good or it can be bad. Be mindful that you're in the hot seat, okay? So like there's all eyes on you. So if you make a post and it is loud and proud and obnoxious and it rubs people the wrong way, it's gonna get a lot of exposure. It's gonna get a lot of attention, all right? Equally, the 10th house deals with, you know, your public reputation, and the 7th house deals with others and how people see you or your marketplace. So there can be a sense with Mercury coming into the 10th house that you are king of the castle. You're telling people how you want to run your business, how you want things to go, how you want your staff to behave, how you want scheduling to go. And other people may not respond well to you being so direct, especially if you manage a group of people or if you have people working for you, if you work with a spouse, right? Or if you have a business partner. All of these planets coming to the top part of the chart is putting so much focus on you out in the world that there's going to be a very assertive side of you that's going to pop off. And I think that business relationships, friendships, romantic partners are going to be like, who is this person? So watch, because there's probably going to be a little bit of pushback. Same day, like I said, with that square, it can also bring this emphasis of talking more about your values, your money, and your goals to the public spotlight. And it's challenging what other people think. Right? Or maybe you're talking about your relationship and your partner doesn't like it. Maybe you're talking about how much money you have and people are like, oh my goodness, why are you talking about that? So just be mindful. Then on the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus enter into Gemini. So Venus will leave your 10th house. It'll go into your natal 11th house of goals and friends and networks and institutions. So this will bring more pleasure, more beauty, more opportunities for parties, gatherings, and get-togethers. And harmony with other people. I like this transit for you because it's going to be sextiling natally your ascendant if you're a Leo rising, bringing the opportunity to really just light up a room, spend time with other people, have a good time. But also Venus moving into this part of the chart makes me feel like you're really able to celebrate some of your professional accomplishments because of Venus's association with your career zone. So there's a lot of like popping bottles, sharing, you know, of good news and talking about some major, you know, changes that have been happening, but also some really positive financial repercussions for some of the more difficult decisions that you had to make in regards to how you're managing your career. Venus rules the 3rd house. So I have a feeling that there is some sense of like celebrating what's going on. And even though maybe you know, some people don't agree with what you're saying or how you're kind of managing your professional life. In a way, like, you know, good or bad, you're still getting some kind of exposure. So if people are talking about you, obviously you're doing something right. Venus in the 11th house will trine Pluto. And so this can mean a couple things. One is that you're just receiving a lot of love and support from friends and like people who are within your community who have your back, and like they're speaking on your behalf and they're like praising you and helping kind of build you up. On the other hand, this can be a time where your romantic relationships and your friends are coming together. Now, if you're single, then there can be a sense of, going out, socializing and meeting people, being introduced to people, being set up by friends, or just meeting people in a social environment. Or it can be a time where a partner is saying, I would like you to, come with me, spend time with my friends, so on and so forth. Venus-Pluto trines are always very powerful, and it can represent powerful alliances, financially and romantic. And you need this, man. With now Pluto in your 7th house, it's like you need all the love and support you can get. You may find that you're really flying high with some of your relationship and professional things, and maybe you have some haters, and that's unfortunate because now it's really your time, Leo rising, especially with all these planets moving into your 10th house. And over the next couple of months, you're going to see huge accomplishments with your career and also your professional and romantic relationships. And you want people who are going to champion you and some of the things that you are doing. So if they're not celebrating with you, they're not on your team. Something else that you want to watch for is on the same day, the sun is going to come into conjunction with Jupiter, which I think is wonderful because you are ruled by the sun. So wherever the sun goes, you go, right? So we've got sun conjunct Jupiter. So it's basically saying there is some celebration or travel or graduation or accomplishment that's happening. Maybe you're graduating, maybe you get accepted into a program. Maybe you are, planning a romantic getaway. This would be such a wonderful time to go on vacation. I could see some people going on vacation and like announcing I got engaged or we got married. I could see some people celebrating I got accepted into law school. I'm going to be this lawyer, or like this big accomplishment between your 9th and your 10th house. You can't go wrong with a sun conjunct Jupiter day because I feel like you're feeling very satisfied and very fulfilled with following your beliefs all the way through and realizing that you were able to kind of make your dreams happen. On the 14th of the month, we are going to see Venus in Gemini square Saturn in Pisces. So Venus is still moving through your 11th house of friends, groups and associations, and it comes into a square with Saturn. So Saturn can represent delays, withholding, limitations, like coldness. And so I feel like usually Venus in the 11th house is, feeling good and straight with some of your friendships, but the square to Saturn, you may realize, some of my friendships are changing, right? There may be a sense of differences of opinions on values or investments or finances. Especially if you are somebody who's been talking about traveling with a friend or what you're willing to spend on travel. There can be somebody who's like, I don't want to spend that much for a flight. I don't want to fly first class. I don't want to pay for the room upgrade. I don't have the money. So we can see literal financial clashes with other people, or not always feeling like you have the most support from female friends or even female friends at work, because Saturn represents co-workers and Venus represents communication, right? Not the best time either to be borrowing or loaning money with the Venus-Saturn square. Now that Saturn's in your 8th house, you're learning the power of saving and not kind of digging into your savings, not overspending, and really being mindful also of your debt usage. So you may be a little bit more forthcoming. That's like, look, I'm not going to be able to pay for everything. Like, I need some help here. And somebody might be like, I'm not doing that. I can't cover that. You may just not feel the love. Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to see a solar eclipse that's going to be taking place in your 9th house in Aries, and Aries is a fellow sister sign. So especially if you're a later degree Leo, sun, moon, or rising, like 27, 28, 29 degrees, you're going to benefit the most from this because you are going to experience a trine. So a solar eclipse is a new beginning, right? And you've already had one new moon in your 9th house. Now you're going to have a second one. So this is considered a black moon, and it's a solar eclipse, and it's at 29 degrees. So it's on the cusp of your 10th house. So it wants you to complete something in the 9th before you move on to the 10th. So it can be a graduation. It can be a completion of a belief system. It can be a trip. All of the ninth house stuff is generally pretty positive. It can bring in new mentors, teachers, or gurus for you as well. Solar eclipses are also very important because it's when the sun, your ruling planet, and the moon come together. And this is why I think it might be prompting travel, because it has a connection to your 12th house lord. If you're looking for new spiritual gurus, mentors, meditation teachers, yoga teachers, hypnotists, this can be something that can come up as well. And it may also prompt higher education. This particular solar eclipse is challenging though, because it is starting to come into a square with Pluto. So it is representing the need to deal with others, change or transform your relationships. And sometimes it's not all negative. I guess the positive is that the ninth house can be about ceremonies and the seventh house can be about marriage. So there can be talk of traveling to go to weddings, getting engaged, planning weddings, and therefore changing or transforming your relationships. The more challenging is that if you're on the Leo side of the spectrum that has been going through trouble in relationships, you're separating or divorcing, this may prompt you going and talking to a legal specialist so that way you can actually separate from your partner. Ninth house can also be talking to lawyers about legality, traveling, visas, and passports. So you may need some of that stuff also in order to be able to either get married or travel. That same day, we're also going to see the sun then leave the ninth house and go into the 10th house. And for several weeks, we will see the sun light up the 10th house, which is all about your career. This is important because it's really putting you in the spotlight. And the very next day, on the 21st, we're going to see Mercury go retrograde in your career sector in the 10th house. Now, when Mercury goes retrograde in the 10th house, I always tell my clients, be very careful when you're sending emails, okay? There can be massive errors that we can make in sending all or reply to all or forward to all and go, oh, I wish I didn't do that. We may not fully edit things before we present them. Mercury retrograde in the 10th house means that you may change direction with your goals in regards to your professional life. Now, Mercury rules the 11th house of goals, and it also rules the 2nd house of money. So it's possible that you're like, do I stay in this position? Do I renegotiate my salary terms? Do I look for another job? Do I go back to a company I used to work for? Have you been out of work for a while and decide it's time to get back into work? Remember, the retrograde represents a changing of direction. So you may be going to or from a position out in the world. I would be mindful of how I'm communicating with my bosses and my superiors, knowing that throughout the retrograde, it's going to go back to about 5 degrees and it's still going to be squaring Pluto. This might also be a time where you're like, what are my goals? Are they really in alignment with the job that I'm working? Do I need to make changes with where I'm working if I really want to kind of get on the path of where I want to go professionally in the long term? Only you are going to know. But the truth is that this is 10 houses or 10 signs away from your sign. So in astrology, that's kind of agitating because it's like a Saturn aspect. It's like you're up against all of that 10th house. So you may feel that there's financial stress going on in the workplace. There's budget cuts. There may be layoffs. There can be also delays with meetings and messages. And you're just feeling like maybe you're not being heard at some of your meetings or people aren't as open to some of the ideas that you have. So just try to keep your cool, right? It's going to be fine. And really ask yourself if your goals are aligning with where you're working or the type of actual career that you're in, right? All right, let's take a look and see what the cards have to say for you. The card that I got for you is the moon. So the full moon, right? The full moon will be taking place in Libra. And that's going to be about negotiations, contracts, cars, finding the middle ground. Like that full moon you're going to have early in the month is probably going to be a little bit more positive for you. Obviously, the transits get more challenging as the month goes on. But the moon deals with illusion, hidden, subconscious, unseen, unknown, fears, transiting, trusting your intuition, uncertainty, secrets, and things that are more complex. The feeling that I get, because the solar eclipse is involving your 12th house lord, with the sun is that there is a sense of you being like, okay, I have a hunch this thing is coming, or that this thing may happen, or this may transpire. Okay, so it's following that, listening to that. I think for the most part, with the North Node at the top part of your chart, you're going to keep climbing that ladder. It may be that somebody suddenly resigns at work and somebody comes in and says to you, like, do you think you can take over their position? And you're like, what? And you never saw that coming. It can be a time where suddenly you get a lot of recognition for something and you didn't see it coming. And you can get overwhelmed with some of the stuff that's going on with the eclipses. You can be very much put in the hot seat in terms of managing or taking care of something, right? Manning the ship. The moon does talk about what goes on subconsciously, and you got Mars in your 12th house, so maybe it's that you're working hard behind the scenes and you're burning the candle at both ends, and maybe you're working into the evenings. That's something I could definitely see with Mars being in the 12th house. Regardless, pay attention to lunations this month, especially the ones that are going to be happening in Aries, because it's coming right on the cusp of your 10th house. So it's saying it's time to really dig deep into your spiritual practice and your belief system and your philosophy right before it brings you some major changes in regards to your career. Good luck, Leo. I've got Virgo and Virgo rising. Welcome to April of 2023. I hope you're doing well, Virgo. Get ready, because you and Gemini are both going to be experiencing a Mercury retrograde this month. So your chart ruler will be turning retrograde, going to the underworld and coming back. But thankfully, it's going to be in a fellow sister sign. Okay, so I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start off first with the third of the month, when Mercury, your chart ruler, moves into Taurus in the natal 9th house. So you know where Mercury goes, it's kind of like a symbol of you, right? That's your archetype. So when Mercury goes into the 9th house, we could be traveling, we could be at airports, we could be going back to school, we could be training, talking about publishing, we could become a student or a teacher. Any of these things are possible. Now, in the sign of Taurus, we might be learning more about money, finances, resources, the arts, design. We may be looking at college courses. We might be looking at workshops, or just booking travel or booking a trip, especially something that might be further away or more pleasurable. In this case, I like the transit for you. It's going to touch on the North Node. It's going to trine your ascendant. So really, like, super golden. It's a time to really focus on your philosophy in general, right? Teachers, mentors, these kinds of people can come in. But I think the stressor for me is that it is coming into hard aspect, creating a square with Pluto in Aquarius. So to me, it's like, yes, these things are wonderful. Going on trips, taking classes, learning, traveling, maybe even teaching or trying to publish something. But something's not jiving with your schedule. And you're like, it's not really working. I have to make changes in regards to my health, my habits, my work life, how often I'm working, where I'm working, because it's just not seeing eye to eye. There can definitely be a sense of being prompted to go and learn more about health and wellness as a result of some health challenges that have been coming up. Maybe having to go and see specialists that might be further away, having to travel to go and see the right healthcare practitioner. A lot of this can be about either your mind or your body. It depends on how you look at it. Mercury rules your first house, and it also rules your 10th. So I wonder if for some of you guys, it's like, I got to change my schedule because I'm taking workshops or I'm doing trainings to really enhance or make changes in regards to my skills or even my profession. So some of you guys might be totally changing and transforming your work schedule where you're like, I'm not working, I'm going back to school, or I have to work part-time, or I have to make changes to my routine because I'm focusing more on studying or traveling. Heavy square, watch for just getting really overwhelmed mentally. Mercury transits move very quickly, so you're going to feel it for about a day or two, and then it's going to start to subside. Then on the 11th of the month, we are going to see that Venus enters into Gemini in your natal 10th house of career. I like this because it makes your relationships with people at work more pleasurable and more harmonious. So if you are employed, you will find that, meetings go well, relationships with bosses are going well, you're getting recognition, people are very receptive to what you're working on and what you're doing. Can love be found in the workplace? Absolutely. It is very possible with Venus in your 10th house. I also think it's possible because we're going to see Venus come into a trine with Pluto. So the 6th house is coworkers in your office, and the 10th house deals with your career. Maybe you're falling in love with what you're doing, right? It doesn't always have to be a person, but Venus can be a woman or a relationship that you're having with women at work. And Venus also rules money and your philosophy. So I think that you're kind of like, wow, I'm working hard, it's paying off, I'm getting positive feedback, I'm actually feeling really solid in what I'm doing. So if you are employed, it's great. If you're looking for a job, equally, it's great. If you're looking to go on an interview, you're going to just totally knock it out of the park with this trine. Same day, we're also going to see the sun coming into conjunction with Jupiter in the 8th house. Now, what's interesting about this is that the sun is about what is like subconscious and hidden. Jupiter rules home and family. And the conjunction taking place in your 8th house can be a number of things. For starters, it is possible that you get a tax refund that is rather large, or you get an inheritance, or a partner gets a bonus, or a spouse ends up, having a windfall, and there in turn, you end up having more abundance as well. It can mean that you get a rather lavish gift or something from a family member. Maybe they're helping you pay a down payment on a home, or they're giving you money that you didn't see was coming. There can also be an excess of focus on expenses involving other people. So if you're one of my Virgo risings who's going through a separation or a divorce, this can actually pinch a little bit and kind of inflame a situation in regards to how much you're paying for your home, your cost of living, child support, spousal support, that kind of stuff as well. It really depends. Now, this can also be a positive indication that there is more coming in from bonuses. So you may get, a position where you're like getting paid the same, but there's more room for growth, or maybe you're going to get better insurance, or just better benefits from a new position that you're going to be taking. Then we've got on the 14th, Venus moving still through the sign of Gemini in the 10th house of career will form a square with Saturn in the 7th. So Venus in the 10th. I see this as like success growing, at work. I see this as getting a lot of recognition and feedback and like really showing up. And like maybe you're at a point where you're loving what you're doing, or you're loving your schedule and who you're working for. And maybe your partners are feeling like you're loving it too much. Saturn in the 7th house can be the partner that's like, hey, I'm over here. Do you see me? Like, you're working all the time, you come home late, like what's going on? I'm not really feeling like we're connecting. On the flip side, Saturn square Venus can be a sense of feeling like you're feeling the lack of that involvement in looking for a significant other, or dedicating yourself to going out on dates, or trying to meet someone because you're so heavily consumed with work. That's the other way I could look at it. It can be a more difficult time to bring in clients or sell them on services or initiate agreements or contracts. I wouldn't try to push for it on this day, because people could literally tell you, no thank you, not interested, not right now. Saturn is in the house of relationships, but it is the ruler of the 5th. So there can also be a sense of showing up to work even though you're going through a very turbulent time in a relationship, and not wanting to let other people know just how difficult it is what you're kind of going through, and kind of putting on your happy face. It's challenging, Virgo, especially if you have any placements really like within the first 5 or 6 degrees of Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, because I feel like there can be lots of growth going on for you in regards to your career or your education or travel, but you're feeling like you're hitting a snag when it comes to relationships in general. On the 20th of the month, we're going to see a solar eclipse that's taking place in Aries at 29 degrees, and this will be in your 8th house. Now, this is the second new moon that's taking place in Aries. We had one last month. The 8th house is about regeneration. It is about joint resources. It is about karma. It's about dealing with our demons, going deep, cleaning out all of the skeletons in our closet. Yes, 8th house eclipses can prompt a death. It can happen. Yes, it can also prompt huge shifts and changes to our joint financial situation. So with Jupiter being there, even though Jupiter is invisible, it is possible that there is a windfall or a refund or a return, or there is some silver lining to somebody else's loss being your gain, or vice versa. I would say that this is an interesting one because it is on the cusp of your 9th house. So it can be suggesting for some of you that it's about your philosophy in regards to intimacy and your relationship or entanglement with other people changing. It is trying to get you to wrap up all of that 8th house before you go into the 9th house. So maybe some of you guys are going, I have to, merge my resources with a partner. I'm paying off my debt before I get married. We're improving our credit before we apply for a loan. These things can be happening here as well. I don't want to take away from the fact that Jupiter will be in your 9th soon and Saturn's in your 7th. If you're single, you might meet a significant partner and you might realize that's your person. If you are committed, you might go to the next step in commitment. But yeah, some of you guys are realizing like the involvement and the heavy costs. And they may not all be financial. It might be the changes going on with your home life or your emotions and learning to be more transparent and vulnerable with others in regards to secrets. This is a critical degree. Okay, so 29 degrees is something that is like sudden. And it is going to be in a square with Pluto. That's in your 6th house. So I can feel like there can be, for some of you guys, sudden job changes. Some of you guys might get severances. Some of you guys may also be undergoing some kind of health related situation, and it may prompt a surgical procedure, or it may prompt you needing to take time away from work because of a health problem or because of a challenge that's going on with the family. Okay, I don't like saying that, but it is possible. This same day, we're also going to see that you are going to have the sun then enter into Taurus. So the sun will go into the 9th house, highlighting philosophy, belief, travel, education, and it's a fellow sister sign. So it's going to start coming into trine. So it's easier. It's easier. Still, we're going to see, with the eclipse and the sun square Pluto, scheduling changes, health changes, changes in regards to your workspace and your coworkers. Okay. And then finally on the 21st, that's like the big day when Mercury is going to turn retrograde. So just a reminder, the shadow will begin on the 6th of April. So if you want to get all of your pre-shadow stuff done, ideally you're doing it before the 6th, or you have up until the 21st. But a Mercury retrograde always affects you, Virgo, because you're ruled by Mercury. So it can have changes to your body. It can have changes to your mind. In the 9th house, there can be a sense of reviewing, revising travel plans, losing tickets, passports, needing to get copies of birth certificates, needing to possibly also go back to school, learn new skills or techniques in regards to making changes in your career. There can be issues with graduation, delays with getting legal advice or feedback from attorneys, negotiations with legal things, delays also with like publishing. You might be kind of changing your mind and going back and forth about whether or not you want a legal separation or whether or not you want to, travel and kind of take a break. This particular retrograde is an interesting one because it is going to be happening that day in conjunction to Uranus. So for some of you guys, you're going to feel like you're maybe having to make a change with a habit, or you're having to make a change with a schedule, or you're having to make a change also, I think, with just your philosophy about life. And maybe you're getting a little agitated because there's some career challenges coming up and it's requiring you to go and learn more and develop more skills. But in order to do that, you have to change your schedule in some way. Now, this will also make oppositions to the early May lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So it's highlighting the 3rd and the 9th house, which can be about travel, it can be about education, it can be about what we believe in or what we know. So a lot of this is about making changes in the places where we get our news, or the books that we read, or the things that we believe in. So there's a lot of things that are shifting here for you now. Take it easy with the Mercury retrograde. If you are traveling, especially internationally, double and triple check everything. Make sure you have tags on your bags. Don't leave laptops and phones and things at airports. Make sure that you don't lose IDs or documents, because that can be a thing. And watch for delays with legal stuff, especially if it's involving like separations, or if you're suing somebody, or negotiations. You know, there can be a bit of like a back and forth and you're trying to mediate something and it can just take a little bit longer than you anticipated. Okay. All right. So let's take a look and see what the cards say for you. The card that I get for you is the Five of Wands. I cannot say that I am surprised because this is a challenging card. Conflict, disagreements, tension, diversity, rivalry, challenges, obstacles, competition, aggression, and clash of the egos. Not surprised, okay? Even though the retrograde is in a positive aspect, right? It's in positive aspect to your ascendant, sun or moon. In the 9th house, it tells me like you don't want to get into some heated, you know, like debate with somebody, especially if you guys have major difference of opinions on your philosophies about life, your perspectives in regards to something legally. Yeah, there's just a back and forth, right? That's the truth. And you have to kind of pick your battles because I don't think you're going to agree with everybody or everybody's going to agree with you. And you may find that it's just more trouble than it's worth going back and forth with people, right? And even though sometimes I know you know better, I know that. I can say that about Virgos and Virgo risings. But with Saturn in your 7th and Mercury retrograde, you're not going to feel like people are making sense, right? Your 9th house is other people's 3rd house. So that means that they're going to be taking their time, communicating, they're going to lose things are going to go missing, and you're going to feel like you want to pull your hair out. So rather than having this conflict and this back and forth and these disagreements, take a step back is what I would recommend. Avoid conflict and challenging other people if at all possible. Give yourself the peace of mind. Really allow yourself to have time to reflect on what you think, what you believe in, and be open to embracing change. That's the key this month with some of the transits taking place in your natal 8th house. Good luck. All right, so this is going to be for Libra and Libra rising. Welcome to April of 2023. I hope you're doing well, Libra. All right, so the month is going to kick off with Mercury entering into the sign of Taurus. So Mercury will be going into your natal 8th house. And the 8th house deals with other people's money, okay? So whether it's your spouse's resources, if it's banking, dealing with loans or debt, wrapping up tax documents, being able to settle wills, estates, this is all the 8th house. Now, Mercury in particular does have connections to conversations, meetings, documents, or travel, okay? But it is in a financial sign. So I think a lot of this may be about financial planning. I think maybe it's also going to be about getting some insight about some money that you're anticipating receiving. So Mercury in your chart rules the 9th house, which deals with foreigners, foreign travel, teachers, education, philosophy, and anything in regards generally to positive things. Mercury also has connections to your 12th house, which is about the subconscious, the hidden realm, dream states, anything that's going to be more kind of metaphysical or spiritual. It's very hidden. So for Mercury to be going into your 8th house, it's a good time for like research, digging into things, learning more about metaphysics, learning more about tarot, astrology, anything that is going to really require you to kind of dig into themes that are much more esoteric. Later in the month, we will see a retrograde here, so just a heads up. Now, I think when Mercury goes into the 8th house, it's giving us the opportunity to change our mind. It's also giving us the opportunity to touch on more sensitive communications. So if we have to talk about joint resources, if we have to talk about savings, if we have to talk about credit scores and debt and all that stuff, this is giving us the opportunity to do that. The problem is right off the bat, when Mercury moves into this sign, it's going to come into a square with Pluto. And when Mercury, the messenger, the mind comes into friction with Pluto, there can be fear that comes into play. So we're kind of concerned, we're worried, we're fearful about change, we're fearful. In this case, it can be about death, right? Because Pluto can represent death. And you've got Mercury in the 8th house, which is kind of Pluto's realm. There can be this fear of, what if I get my heart broken? What if I make an investment that doesn't pay off? What if I never speak to a child again? What if I never have children? These things can kind of come up because it's playing off of the 5th house. My advice is don't let fear run the show. Okay, actually, this is much more about finances and investments and whether or not you're taking too many risks with your finances. The fifth house does deal with, what we end up bringing in from our creative endeavors. And the eighth house does deal with money that we share with other people. So you may be trying to figure out, okay, how do I do my taxes if I'm self-employed? Or how can I have more tax deductions now that I'm working in a creative field? How much money do I owe? How much money do I need to save? It's also possible that there's some changes going on with your resources or your insurance as a result of the potential of a child or even a pregnancy, because the eighth house is being affected by the fifth. There could be excessive costs relating to children. There can also be a theme of returning or thinking about going back to doing some kind of therapy in regards to issues pertaining to your childhood. So just watch for that. There can be some intense conversations and some impulses that can be kind of coming up, especially with Mercury being in the eighth house. It is a little morbid, and the connections that it has to the 12 might talk about just your intuition coming online and you're having like dreams or feelings about something getting ready to change that may affect your joint resources with another person. Now on the 11th, we're going to see Venus move into the sign of Gemini. And this is extra, extra good for my Libra risings, especially if you have any placements from about 0 to 2 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising. Venus is your chart ruler, okay? So Venus rules your body, and when Venus goes into Gemini, there is a sense of having more freedom, kind of floating around a little bit, having options, having choices, and being able to use words as an expression of love. So Venus going into the 9th house brings sweetness with others abroad. So you may get lots of positive feedback from somebody far away. You may decide to go on a trip or go on a vacation and you really enjoy yourself. You may really enjoy a program or going through a course or a certification. And you maybe just pick up a book or something that you really enjoy like reading, right? It's something that's that simple. With Venus in a fellow air sign, it's going to be very comfortable for you. It's going to allow you to be much more social and connected to other people. And what I like about this is that on this day, on the 11th, Venus is going to be trining Pluto. So there is a sense of big opportunities for love and relationships, falling in love with somebody at a distance, maybe going on a romantic getaway or a trip. It can also just really open up the heart space with the trines to Pluto. Because Venus rules your joint resources, also I feel like you're growing in intimacy, and it might mean that you're getting closer to somebody because you're traveling and going somewhere with them. This very same day, we're also going to see the sun coming into conjunction with Jupiter in Aries in your natal 7th house. And like I said before, this is considered one of the luckier days of the year. It's happening in your opposite sign, so it does represent some kind of opportunity coming in that may present a relationship. So the 7th house can be people who are your clients, or it can be your marketplace. It can bring you some sense of attention or recognition from a group. Equally, this might just be like a lucky chance opportunity for you to meet somebody, and it ends up being a really strong connection. Jupiter rules your 3rd house of communication, and I have a feeling that this can really bring a lot of messages, people sliding into your DMs, wanting to connect with you, wanting to travel, wanting to meet you, wanting to call you, and just a lot of back and forth that you're having that day. And if you happen to be traveling, or if you connect with somebody at a distance, you never know if it might be a very significant relationship. You'll have to let me know what happens here, Libra, because between that conjunction and also the trine that you're having with Venus and Pluto, the 11th, maybe the 12th seems to be an extra sweet time for you in your relationships. Then we're going to have on the 14th, Venus and Gemini will come into a square with Saturn and Pisces. So Venus is still moving through your 9th house, coming into a square with Saturn. And I feel like there's some friction between your obligations to your schedule, or your obligations to your health or to your work, and also travel. There is also the sense of like Venus being in your 9th house where you're wanting to daydream and plan and go places, but you're like, I have so much work on my hands. If you have been traveling or going places, there can also be this sense of having a difficult time like adjusting back to a schedule. So getting back to the gym, getting back to an eating schedule, getting back to work. And it's just kind of feeling uncomfortable. You have to be careful with Saturn-Venus squares because it can affect your health. And I also feel like with Venus in the 9th house in a square to Saturn in the 6th, it makes me feel like there's some sense of traveling or being away, and you're needed either at the office or family needs you. And you're like, I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, but work is calling, or I've got work emails and people who are asking me for assistance, and you're getting pulled in both directions. On the 20th of the month, we're going to see a solar eclipse in Aries in your natal 7th house. And this is going to be the first solar eclipse in a series of eclipses that will be taking place over the next 2 years in Libra and Aries. In the summer, the North Node's moving into your 7th house, really bringing partners of destiny into your life. And the South Node is moving into your sign. So you're learning to disassociate or disconnect from an old version of yourself. You're shedding away your old layers, and you're focusing more on how you can be in tune with others. Between Jupiter being here, eclipses that are coming, it's a really powerful time to align with people who can help you. And this isn't just limited to romantic relationships. This can also be meeting a new astrologer, bringing in new therapists, counselors. This can be business partners and really prominent relationships with people professionally that may aid in your public recognition. It's at 29 degrees. So the truth is that this is at a particularly interesting degree. It is going to in conjunct, right, or quincunx your ascendant. So it can bring up some disharmony or some things that are out of whack or out of balance with your body. It also is on the cusp of your 8th house, which represents a sudden deep change or transformation. It represents rebirth, death, letting go, something kind of turning over. 29 degrees in general is a crisis point. So the other thing I want you to know is that it does represent a crisis, a completion, something with your relationships before you leap into the 8th house. So solar eclipses bring action, they bring new opportunities, and this is the second of 2 new moons that we've had in Aries. So we had one last month at 0 degrees, and this is the second one that we're having at 29 degrees. A lot's going on in relationships. That's the bottom line here. So pay attention to what's going on with your relationships. This particular eclipse will be reactivated several times. It'll be reactivated in mid-May when Jupiter hits this degree. That may be when more unfolds in regards to relationships, and it's going to get reactivated again when the North Node hits 29 degrees in July. So even if you don't see somebody show up immediately right now, you're going to see more of this happen throughout the next couple of months. The challenging thing with this eclipse is that it is squaring Pluto. So Pluto in the 5th house can bring a broken heart, right? It can bring some challenges in regards to your confidence, some challenges in regards to your creative habits, to your children, some challenges with your love life. Pluto rules what you possess, and the fact that it's in the 8th house tells me that you're starting to get really fixated and obsessed with what you love, how you can express yourself, maybe hobbies, or the idea of major changes and transformations involving children. So everybody's going to have this eclipse where Pluto, it's not just going to be, oh, look at what's being brought forth in Aries. It's how that's being brought forth, and it's positive, right? We just don't see it yet because Jupiter's not there yet. But it's coming through some ending and rebirth in the Aquarius area of your chart. So I feel like relationships are about to become a huge focal point, and I think that you may realize that relationships have the ability to really evolve and go deeper as a result of maybe going through some turbulent times. It can be some financial changes, it can be pregnancies, it can also be changes in regards to your relationship that you have with your family. And when you go through some difficult times, you really realize the importance of having a partner that has your back. So even if you don't have one, you're going to be realizing, wow, it would be nice to have one as I go through this, right? And then finally on the 21st, the very next day, Mercury is going to turn retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Mercury will retrograde from April 21st through May 14th. It'll go all the way from 15 degrees of Taurus back to 5 degrees of Taurus. And it is going to be in your 8th house. So there is some sense of reorganizing your resources, your taxes, your banking, your loans, and it can bring some stress. I would be very careful, Libra. I would not be writing checks or spending money or charging things that you may not have. I would be very careful doing your taxes. I would be very cautious in regards to gambling and taking chances with your resources because there can be losses. Equally, Mercury retrograde in the 8th house can bring up themes involving having to talk about an estate and inheritance, finding out that somebody is transitioning in the family, that you're supposed to be receiving something, which I do think is possible because you're going to have an eclipse on your 8th house cusp, and Jupiter in May will be going into your 8th house. So some of you guys know that you're getting an inheritance. Some of you guys may be finding out that you're getting some kind of something. Some of you guys may not figure it out until Jupiter comes into your 8th house in the spring. And whether it's winning the lottery, whether it's a spouse that has a windfall, or you end up inheriting $1 million, something's going on here, so your finances are going to be changing. My advice is to listen to your intuition. With the Mercury retrograde here, Mercury is the ruler of your 12th house. You may need to get a reading. You may need to bust out your tarot cards. You may need to be meditating more. And yes, there can be lots of stress in regards to changes with finances, but equally, it is going to be supported because it's going to sextile Saturn. So it says you're going to have help, you're going to have support, you're going to be able to make some of the changes with your schedule or some of the changes with your health to be able to better navigate some of these things. Okay? So let's see what the cards have to say for you. Oh, wow. And the card that I get is the Four of Wands. Interesting that Jupiter is in your 7th house of marriage. Venus is going into the 9th house. You've got eclipses happening in your 7th house. Some of you guys may be getting married. Some of you guys may be getting engaged. This is a card of homecoming, celebration, harmony, marriage, family, friends, reunions, community, gathering, stability, and belonging with other people. So there can be people coming together, and the coming together can be for positive reasons like celebrations, weddings, births, but it can also be because of endings or tragedy or funerals. Although this is a positive card, so I want to keep it positive. I do feel like for you, there is this sense of big things changing with either your home, your family, or your life that's making way for new relationships, new home situations, new unions, all of that stuff. So it is a sense of sweet and salty. This card does talk about enjoying where you're at in the moment, right? Like being appreciative of what you're having and like learning to really like take it all in and enjoying that moment because it may be, a very quick passing thing. So if you have the opportunity to really kind of spend more time with partners or in relationship or with others, really enjoy that. And just, be present with some of that stuff. If you get invitations to go places, go. Say yes. Be involved in all of that stuff because it's going to give you a little bit of a reprieve from what can be some heavier things later in the month. Good luck, Libra. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, what's going on? We have a lot going on, Scorpio. All of the fixed signs are really going to be feeling some intensity, and that is not, that's not excluding you. So pay attention. We're going to start first with the 3rd of April. So this will be the April overview. On the 3rd, we're going to see Mercury move into your 7th house of relationships, and it's going to spend an extended period of time here because Mercury will go retrograde later in the month. So Mercury represents the 11th house, which is goals, friends, parties, connections to others. And also it represents the 8th house of intimacy, joint resources, and it's moving into the 7th. So wherever Mercury is, there's lots of communication and exchanges. The 7th house is our boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, business partners, clients. It's also our marketplace. So if you are in a position where you are managing and talking to people, or you have clients, or there's a lot of meetings, you're just going to notice this is going to uptick. This is also creating a lot of oppositions this month. So you're going to have planets in the opposite sign as you, which means it's bringing your attention to others. Other people may have a lot to say. They're reaching out, calling, chatting with you, maybe wanting to kind of share their secrets or their insights, or talking to you about financial situations, or some of their goals in general. Now, Mercury, when it first moves into Taurus, it's immediately going to start coming into a square with Pluto in Aquarius, which is now in your 4th house. So this can go one of two ways, Scorpio. One way that this can play out is that there is a bit of a power struggle in how you're communicating with a partner. Especially if it's a romantic partner or somebody that you live with. There can also be a little bit of conflict or airing something out, possibly with a counselor, with a therapist, or maybe even with a family member. Because, you know, you're Pluto, so Pluto's in the 4th house. There can be some kind of tension in terms of how you're communicating with a partner about a home or a family matter. Try to take a breather. Know that Mercury squaring your ruling planet means that there is a sense of a partner kind of going through something and maybe kind of having some friction, and you're just kind of like, oh my goodness, give me some space. I feel that this can also be about a lot of back and forth that you guys are having about the potential of changes at home, especially with what you guys are spending, you know, savings, taxes, mortgage stuff. That can be coming up as well as a result of that square. Try to watch and be open and sensitive and not be too heavy when it comes to communicating with this other person, because it looks like those of you guys who are going through changes in your relationships, it is pushing you to become more open and emotionally vulnerable. On the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus enter into the sign of Gemini. So it's going to move into your natal 8th house. Now, Venus going through this part of the skies, the 8th house is like going to hell and back, okay? There's a change and a transformation that happens when planets go through the 8th house. The pros is that people can be more generous if money is owed to you, if you're wanting to cash out on something, if you're wanting to get refunds. This is a really wonderful time to do it. There can be more bonuses, there can be more gifts that happen when Venus goes through the 8th house as well. However, Venus in the 8th house does seem to kind of represent this theme of partners undergoing some kind of change or transformation. So a partner could come into some money, they could have an investment payoff, and then suddenly it also positively impacts you as well. Really watch for this, Scorpio, because Venus rules your relationships, and the fact that it's going to trine Pluto seems to suggest that a partner is going through a financial matter or a family matter or a personal matter that's really going to change or transform your home life. Venus can be women, Venus can be sisters, mother figures, grandmothers, aunts, cousins. And I think that that 8th house trine to Pluto seems to suggest like there's a change in the family and it's going to impact you. Okay, so we'll see how that plays out. The positive is that when we see Venus, your 7th house lord, trine Pluto, which rules your chart, you guys are both in the trenches of the change together, but there's also opportunity for immense love. There's opportunity for wealth. This can be a period where you're finding out a partner's getting an inheritance or you have a windfall and suddenly it changes your whole world and you're able to make the home changes that you're looking to make. So if you're wanting to refinance, apply for a loan, maybe somebody receives an inheritance, suddenly like that really opens up and changes things for you and your domestic home zone. This same day, we're also going to see that we're going to have the sun coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So generally, this is a positive day, okay? The sun rules your career and it's hanging out in your 6th house. So it's like, oh my gosh, we have a ton of work. There's a lot of work to do. The 6th house is of service and it's coming into conjunction with Jupiter. So it's like you're working hard for the money. You're working hard to have all of that kind of pay off. And I'm liking the fact that, you know, relationships this month are going to be kind of teaching you it can't be all work and no play. Like there needs to be some downtime. And also it's really important for you to be better managing and navigating, taking care of your health, your habits, and your routine. The sun conjunct Jupiter makes me feel like you're making better decisions or better choices about health, fitness, or what you're eating. And you're really kind of on top of taking responsibility for your health. But it can also be a time where You're spending more money on fitness, on food products, on supplements, on gym memberships, and like you're really just shining and showing everybody how well you're really looking and taking care of yourself. The downside is that there can be accidents in the 6th house, there can be disappointments, there can be delays. So even though there's a ton of work, you might feel like, oh, there is this explosion of inflammation, digestional issues, there can be headaches, and you can be more accident prone. So just be mindful of that. There's a need to kind of just take your time as you're moving through work this month. Then on the 14th of the month, we're going to see Venus continue to move through Gemini in your 8th house, and Venus is going to start coming into a square with Saturn. So Venus is going through that transformation of resources and relationships. She gets a little disappointed when she comes into a square with Saturn. It seems to kind of represent the sweet and the salty, that, okay, we're in relationship, but there's going to be some hurdles, but there's going to be some responsibility, there's going to be some challenges. To me, it seems like money is being made, but the question is are you enjoying how you're making money? Is there a way to carve out more creative time? Is there a way to also, go deeper into intimacy? Saturn in the 5th house does not want shallow surface relationships. It wants true love. It wants commitment. Even if that means that there is a need to kind of hash out things that may be a little sensitive. It can also be a time where there's like a feeling of rejection, especially if you're not opening yourself up, you're not opening your heart up. Partners can say to you, what's wrong? Why are you being cold? What's going on? Why are you not receptive? And so I would say watch for that as well. Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries, and it's going to be at 29 degrees. So that'll be taking place in your 6th house, right on the cusp of your 7th house of relationships. Now, this is the very first solar eclipse in a series of solar eclipses and lunar eclipses taking place in the signs of Aries and Libra. The nodes will change in July, so this is kind of the beginning process of ushering you into this energy. But the truth is that many of you guys are already ready because Jupiter has been in this part of your chart. So what happens with a solar eclipse in the 6th? We can have accidents. We can have health challenges. We can have new changes in where we're working, offices, new schedules, new habits, things like that. A solar eclipse is taking into consideration the sun, which rules career, and the moon, which rules beliefs, in the 6th house. So you've already had one new moon here. This is the second new moon, but it's a solar eclipse. And it really wants you to become aware of your habits. So I would say in the sign of Aries, are you working too much? Are you working out too much? Are you eating well? Are you really setting your daily lifestyle habits and routines up appropriately, right? Jupiter there, even though it's invisible, wants to bring more abundance and it wants to bring more positivity. So I feel like it's not just about going to the gym, but it's about integrating a more positive mindset, making changes, and also learning more about what you're eating. And you're just going to see that there's just going to be so much work with this solar eclipse. And it's really setting the stage for the next few months. I don't think things are going to slow down. Now, what's challenging about this solar eclipse is that it's going to square Pluto. And that's really important for you because Pluto is your ruling sign planet. So when the solar eclipse squares Pluto, it seems like there's this need to change your work schedule, your work habit. Maybe you feel like your work schedule kind of gets upended because there's some kind of change going on with your home or your family. Maybe you're having to organize your home. Maybe you're planning on cleaning up your home, doing some stuff to upgrade it or improve it. The truth is this, these particular eclipses are really setting the stage for the North and the South node to square Pluto really between now and like July or August of this year. So it's not just focusing on the 6th house of health and routine and where we're working, it's really still shining a light on Pluto. And that's challenging for everybody because when Pluto squares the nodes, collectively we all have to kind of evolve, but especially you because it rules your chart. So if you're doing all the physical work, right, like working in regards to your career, but you're not acknowledging the work that you would rather be doing, or if you're not developing healthier schedules and habits, maybe if you're like reluctant to want to change where you're living, it's going to just prompt like, hey, like you have to do the shifts within your inner self or your inner world. So it can't be all work. It needs to be emotional work and domestic work as well. Anyway, that eclipse is a little uncomfortable for you, okay? And you're going to see just after the eclipse, then the sun is going to go into your 7th house, highlighting your relationships and your partners. So suddenly there's going to be more dominance with relationships. You're going to have a retrograde there. Also, the very next day on the 21st, Mercury is going to turn retrograde in the 7th. So it's the kind of, you know, textbook Mercury goes retrograde in your relationship zone. People from the past can call you. It is possible that people from the past are checking in with you on social media. They're sending you text messages. Yes, exes can come around. But to me, it seems like there can also be this sense of partners not communicating well, clients not communicating well, relationships with counselors or, you know, financial people who you're kind of working with who are just not returning your calls or, you know, going back and forth very well. It's frustrating because it's in opposition to your sign. It's also going to be frustrating because as Mercury turns retrograde, it'll go retrograde from 15 to 5 degrees of Taurus. It's going to square Pluto. So you're not communicating very well, either with a roommate or a partner or a romantic partner. And there seems to be some like emotional challenges that are going on. Some of you guys are realizing you want to get out of relationships, so you need to move. Some of you guys are realizing in order to find that relationship or come together with another person, you need to move. So there's some back and forth that you're going through with someone else. This particular retrograde will go from April 21st to May 14th. So anywhere within that period, you can make up, break up, you know, come back together. There can also be hearing from clients and people from the past. Friends, you might reconnect with friends from the past as well, and they might be reaching out to you and trying to kind of like either make amends or reconnect, okay? This is really important also because this particular retrograde is going to oppose what will be an incoming lunar eclipse in Scorpio, in your sign. So mark your calendars for May the 5th. There's going to be this lunar eclipse in Scorpio around, I believe, like 14, 15, 16 degrees, okay? So the fact that Mercury is going back and forth in opposition to an eclipse that will be on your ascendant tells me that there can be a lot of back and forth with a romantic partner over the next month, which can prompt you at the beginning of May to just be like out with it and telling them what you really think or how you really feel, and it can bring up a lot of emotions for you. So try to be patient with other people. I think the Mercury retrograde is interesting because people can come clean about how they really feel or financial situations or things they've been hiding. And they may feel like suddenly they're really finally ready to kind of clear the air and tell you what's on their mind. Okay. So let's see what the cards say for you about the month ahead. The card that I get for you is the Page of Wands. Adventure, excitement, fresh ideas, cheerfulness, energetic, fearlessness, discovery, young spirit, limitless potential, extrovert. Pages are younger people. So this can represent a child. This can represent a younger fire sign, an Aries, Leo, Sag. This can also represent some new creative impulses or new creative ideas. I like this. I feel like it's going to bring some kind of action in regards to just working through some emotional changes or some home changes, learning how to communicate and tell other people what you need, right? So until we're in crisis or until we're in a situation where we're kind of feeling pressed, it's only then where we can kind of be like, okay, fine, I need help. You know, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on. And you'll be surprised that partners may actually be more receptive than you give them credit for, right? So even in spite of these squares to Pluto, these sextiles to Saturn tells me that they may really focus on hearing you out, trying to make you feel loved, trying to hear any issues you're having with insecurities. If there's some financial challenges, if there are some issues in vulnerability, they're going to be like, hey, like, let's talk about it. So there can be a sense of changing the way that you communicate while you're in the midst of this retrograde in general. Look for support from young creative friends or just younger people who are popping in. You know, Saturn is in your 5th house, so it might be talking about whether or not you really love somebody, whether or not you're really ready for that next step in a relationship, or it can just be about getting back into dating. So if you feel like a little gun shy with dating, maybe the retrograde is going to be about you going, okay, maybe I think I finally healed and I'm now ready to kind of get back in the swing of things. Okay, good luck, Scorpio. For Sag and Sagittarius rising, welcome to April of 2023. I hope you're doing well. We've got a wild month ahead, so I hope you're excited for this. It's going to start first off with the 3rd of April when Mercury moves into the sign of Taurus. So Mercury will be moving into your natal 6th house. The 6th house, Mercury does very well here, right? Because it has like this kind of Virgo flavor. So when Mercury goes into the 6th house, it wants to clean, it wants to organize, it wants to be of service, it wants to organize your office space, it wants to check things off the to-do list. And Mercury rules your 7th house of relationships and your 10th house of career. So it tells me that there's definitely going to be a lot of work, there's a lot of seeing clients or working with people. Maybe there's a sense of really tending to your schedule, focusing on what you're eating, your physical body, and your health. And also just a lot of being in the workplace, right? So you just might notice that you're spending more time at work, you're really focusing on systems and schedules and software and like getting everything set up or worked out. Now, other people are willing to help you because Mercury deals with the 7th. So if you have a business partner, if you have a romantic partner, maybe they're willing to help get you to meetings or to doctor's appointments. Maybe they're willing to kind of help you check stuff off your to-do list, anything of that nature. So for the most part, it's a positive transit for everybody because Mercury is going to be dancing near the North Node. So we're going to have some of these conversations. But the challenge is that Mercury is going to come into a square with Pluto, which is in the 3rd house. So part of what you're learning with Pluto and Aquarius, Sag, is that words have power, right? And that thoughts have power over you. They also have the power to control you, to make you feel freaked out or worried. You're certainly changing or transforming something about your mind, and you're learning not to like let fear kind of run the show because Pluto rules your 12th house. There can be some slip-ups where like subconsciously you start kind of talking about trauma or things that have happened that you're afraid could repeat. And I would just say really watch for some of these issues that can be coming up. Now, when Mercury squares Pluto, there is a sense of having some really intense conversations with people. And that can be by text, by email, you know, in meetings, over the phone, on Zoom. And also I have this feeling that it can be about addressing or coming out with things that maybe have been kind of lurking in the shadows. If you've had beef with a coworker, if you have some tension with a sibling, if you have a partner that hasn't been communicating very well, there may be a sense of being like, what is going on? Just watch for that. Just watch the tones. And I would also say, because the 3rd house deals with travel and vehicles and Mercury is coming into the square with Pluto, you're more predisposed to either having some accidents, especially involving vehicles, or some accidents with gadgets or computers or things at work where there can be accidents, which can prove costly. The list goes on. Just be mindful of this. You know, for everybody, I've said to all of the signs, this is really showing us also where Pluto is starting to come into a square with the nodes, and it represents an area where we need to change and transform. So some of you guys may have vehicle issues from this, and you may realize there's a real problem here. Do I need to change my car? Or you have gadget issues and you're like, there's a real problem here. Do I need to get a new laptop? Maybe a system at work goes down and then everybody has to get a new software, and there's like a sense of adapting later in the month during the retrograde. And these can take time to adapt to, and they can also prove to be very costly. On the 11th, Venus enters Gemini. So Venus enters into your 7th house of relationships, where she is very happy. It brings more sweetness in your relationships and your connections with other people. If you're single, it can be a time that's really highlighting meeting with other people. If you're in a committed relationship, it can also bring much more communication and kind of liveliness and chit chat with a romantic partner. So I love this transit for you. I also love that the very same day, we're going to have Venus coming into a trine with Pluto. So words are powerful. Things that you say, things that you write, there can be these grand declarations of love on social media and sharing relationship stories and receiving, you know, a lot of praise and appreciation and people who are really giving you a pat on the back. I love this for you, especially considering the very same day we're seeing the Sun and Jupiter coming into a conjunction in your 5th house, which is extra sweet for you, Sag, because Jupiter rules your chart. So Jupiter in the 5th is an expansion of the heart, feeling creative, feeling romantic and lovable, love of children, love of anything that is adventurous, especially with that Sun conjunction. So I have a feeling that there's some kind of merger because the Sun rules the 9th house of travel, and Jupiter being, you know, you're going on a trip with somebody, you're planning a foreign trip, you're getting away with a partner and having a romantic, adventurous kind of getaway sometime in the sun. Such a sweet day. And then you have the Venus trine Pluto. I don't think it gets any better than that, to be honest with you. So let me know how that plays out. Obviously, the Sun conjunction to Jupiter can be, I love you, or let's get married, or I'm pregnant. Like, these can all be things that happen with the 5th house. This will make even more sense when you start to see the eclipses that are rolling in your 5th house pretty soon. On the 14th, we're going to see Venus continue to make her way through the 7th house, really bringing the sweetness in relationships, but she will start coming into a square with Saturn. So it almost seems like relationships are growing. The family might be growing. Your excitement about the future is building, but there is some challenge with partners and also family, or partners and home. So it can be like, okay, we're, you know, in love with each other. We want to move in together, but I'm locked in a lease. How do we do that? We want to be together, but one of us would have to relocate. How do we do that? Saturn squares suck. There's no easy way around it. Everybody's going to feel it. I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging for you because Saturn is at the bottom of your chart, and honestly, it can have you in your feelings. There can be a lot of challenges with home or with your mother or with your family, and you're feeling super bound to, oh, but I got to get the plumbing fixed, or I have to wait for the landlord to come, or I have to go take care of grandma. And you may feel like you would rather, you know, be with another person. The good news is Venus in the 7th tells me that you've got somebody saying, it's fine, it's okay, I'm here when you need me. If there's anything I can do, I'm willing to help. I understand that you're kind of landlocked, right? But still, there can also be a, I'm not yet ready to move in, but I'm in love with you, maybe in the future. There can also be a sense of, I'm all in, but what about your family? Something about relationships, right? May not be jiving. And that can be your family and a partner. That can be you and a sibling, because Venus is in a sign that's associated with Mercury. So it can be about siblings. Issues with relationships, also with roommates, or even with neighbors, because now Pluto's in the 3rd. So you might be having some issues with neighbors. You're kind of trying to figure out how do you talk to them. And it's just like there's no reasoning with some people. Possibly. I don't know. We'll see. Then on the 20th of the month, you're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees. And that solar eclipse is going to be in your 5th house of creativity, love, romance, and joy. Solar eclipses bring action, okay? So we've got the sun, which rules the higher, mind, philosophy, travel, and beliefs. And we've also got the moon, which is about change and transformation. I mean, look, Jupiter is in conjunction. Jupiter's going to hit this point in mid-May, and then the North Node is going to hit this point in July or August. I've said this before, I'll say this again. Many of you guys are either going to find out that you're falling in love, you're launching a project that feels like it's a process of having to kind of grow it and get it out there, especially if it's creative or you're self-employed, or it's about becoming a parent and finding out that you're going to have a child or that you're pregnant. Good news can come from existing children as well. So that's something else that I would look for. But yeah, I mean, you know, 5th house eclipses make your heart sing. So even if you don't see it yet, as soon as Jupiter starts coming into these degrees over these next few months and the North Node, it is definitely opening up the heart space and really kind of getting you in touch with the inner child, or the maybe even like the inner artist. That can be something else that's evolving. You might meet someone, you might start a new hobby. It's all about just having fun and expressing yourself. And while all of this is good, the solar eclipse does square Pluto. So everybody's going to feel that whole, this is exciting, this is new, this is emerging. And yes, especially if you have anything around 27 to 29 degrees of Sag, you'll experience a trine, but this is going to square Pluto in the 3rd house. So it's like, oh my goodness, I'm excited and I'm learning this new hobby, this, that, and the other, but I have to buy a program, right? Pluto in the 3rd to learn how to do this thing. But I have to travel to a new school to learn this trade. I'm pregnant. Okay, great. But we're in a 1-bedroom apartment. We have to move, right? 3rd house. So the excitement and the celebration that's kind of coming up within the 5th house may not resonate with Pluto. And this is where I feel like you can have some cattiness with siblings. You can have some conflict also with neighbors, once again. And I feel like there can be fears coming up in the mind, like, can I handle this? Is this going to be okay? You know, is it going to work out? And so all these things are obviously a little scary, but also it's exciting. So I want you to focus more on the Jupiter aspects, because it's about keeping things moving and exciting, and it's about having fun and creating, right? That same day, then the sun moves into Taurus. So the sun moving into Taurus is putting an emphasis on your 6th house, where you're getting to work, you're being of service, you're sharing, you're organizing, you're fixing, you're tweaking, all of these things. So if you need to make an appointment to go to the doctor, the dentist, if you need to see an acupuncturist, if you want to see an herbalist, if you're wanting to make dietary changes, I really recommend making that your focus. The 6th house is tricky. You know, there can be a sense of there being so many responsibilities here, and feeling also that there's delays or there's accidents. So watch for that. But the very next day, Mercury will turn retrograde also in this house. And so I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The day that the retrograde starts, which is on April 21st, and it will go until May 14th, the moon, Uranus, and also Mercury are all going to be in conjunction in the 6th house. So the moon represents changes and transformations in regards to your joint resources or family or insurance. Uranus is destabilizing, sudden in regards to cars, and Mercury is going to deal with your partner. Look, if you're traveling, make sure that your car is insured. Make sure that your car has been thoroughly looked at. Make sure that you're driving with insurance and proof of paperwork and documents. Be very careful when you're driving, because you may be more predisposed to having accidents. Equally, it might be that it's a partner that's going through that, or if you're driving with a partner, that can happen as well. So just really take your time. Mercury will go retrograde here. So it can also bring changes of your schedule. So there might be a sense of being like, I need to take time off of work. I'm sick. I'm dealing with, you know, overcoming a cold or the flu. It might be that you need to return back to a health specialist. It might mean that you also need to reevaluate some of your habits or your patterns. Mercury, you know, going retrograde here is going to give you the opportunity to reveal health challenges. Pets can get sick. All kinds of things can happen here. So if you've had a pet going through a health issue with Uranus here these last few years, really pay attention to your pet, because it can kind of come back up again. Travel delays, accidents, all of these things. The retrograde will go from 15 degrees to 5 degrees of Taurus. So just be mindful of that. And even though a retrograde here does better, because it's kind of like a Virgo mercurial energy, Taurus is a sign that quincunx is your ascendant. So you guys don't have anything in common. It's agitating. You're going to get agitated because you're going to feel like making the health changes or making appointments or getting things serviced or worked on is taking too long, or that you have to go back and keep perfecting things, or you have to keep going back and taking some kind of tests in regards to your health. So you're going to get a little agitated, basically. Let's take a look and see at what the cards have to say for you. Give you some insight as to what to be expecting for the month ahead. Oof, the card that I get is the Tower. So the Tower, sudden change, upheaval, revelations, awakening, destruction of old foundations, trauma, disaster, radical shifts, and chaos. Obviously, nobody likes pulling this card. But when this card comes up, it's like that rug pull moment where it's like, okay, that happened, that fell apart. At least now I know, so now I can, rebuild. I want you to think of it that way. This is also Mars energy. This is also Uranus energy. So there's a sense of something suddenly shaking and then imploding. Mars at the time is going to be in your natal 8th house. So it's going to be comfortable in the 8th house, but it's in the sign of Cancer. So I wonder if there's like changes going on with home or family that is sudden and dramatic, that's affecting your emotions, your schedule, or your health. Yeah, shocks, disaster, accidents. I mean, you guys really hear me on this. Totaling cars with Pluto square the nodes here is very possible. Having conversations where things are said where there's no coming back from them equally can be very possible. Even though it sounds a little bit scary, I think for the most part, this eclipse that's coming in, that's on the cusp of the 6th house, is kind of saying, hey, this is possible. Really pay attention to your health and your schedule and slow down. And maybe you can use that eclipse as a means to, prepare to make the changes that you need to make in the 6th house. But yeah, the Tower card is a gnarly card, and it does talk about something suddenly ending. So it can be a job, it can be a relationship, it can be something in regards to your home life, really the list go on. But for the most part, I would say really take care of the physical body and stick to a routine where you can feel solid so you can kind of work through some of these things if need be. Okay? Good luck, Sagittarius. Let me know how that plays out. I am very curious to hear how that card resonates. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, welcome to April of 2023. I hope you're doing well. This is going to be your overview for the month ahead. So we're going to start off with talking about the 3rd, and this is going to be when Mercury moves into Taurus in your natal 5th house. Now, Mercury moving into this sign is actually beneficial for you because Mercury is in a fellow Earth sign. It'll be making trines at some point throughout its transit to your sun, moon, or rising. In particular, if you have any placements between 5 and 15 degrees of Capricorn, you'll be experiencing trines a couple times because of the retrograde later in the month. So Mercury rules travel, higher mind education, health, daily routines, and also your schedule, okay? So when Mercury moves into the 5th, we want to talk about what we love, who we're dating, we want to talk about our hobbies, we want to have fun, we want to play games, we want to take risks, and we want to be kind of showing this more youthful, kind of playful energy in the 5th house. So I like this for you because I feel like you might be really focusing on how can I make more time for my creative endeavors? How can I prioritize time in my schedule for dating, spending time with my kids, maybe going on vacation, having a trip. So that's wonderful. But when Mercury first enters into Taurus, it's going to immediately come into a square with Pluto. So it makes me feel like there's some challenges in regards to your financial security, your financial overall health, and also your 5th house matters. So here's the lesson. Stick to a budget, right? That's what Saturn should have taught you the last few years. Don't overly spend or overly indulge just because something brings you pleasure. So whether that's swiping the credit card at the mall, whether that is, going on a really expensive bougie date, if that's blowing a ton of money, going to a theme park or a lavish gift for a child or a romantic partner, these things can definitely come up. I have a feeling it would be excessive spending for children, dates, or travel. These are the things that come up the most for me. But you may also develop a really expensive hobby and you're like, I need to buy all these things. I would say, be mindful, especially if you have to travel for this hobby or if you have to be taking courses or lessons, it can prove to be very costly. You're going to feel like taking risks all month. Okay. And I would say if it's a financial risk, investments, or launching businesses or things, just be really practical with your spending habits. Now, on the 11th of the month, we're going to see Venus enter into Gemini. So Venus will be moving into your 6th house. Kind of tricky territory here. Venus is not entirely thrilled being in this part of your chart. It does bring more beauty and consistency in the workplace. So you may get along better with coworkers. You might bring some flowers into your office. You might decide that it's time to go and check in with your favorite, doctor or what have you. But Venus in the 6th house can bring issues with relationships. It can bring problems, especially with romantic partners, family relationships, especially siblings. So especially like female relatives, mothers, sisters, aunts, cousins, there can be some conflict going on with these people because the 6th house does represent, to an extent, some kind of enemies that we're dealing with. Now, Venus being in this sign is essentially going to start making trines to Pluto. So in that case, it's good because Pluto in the 2nd house is your, financial power. It may mean that a woman is wanting access to that. So if you have recently gained an inheritance, taken on a estate of a family member or a relative, if you're taking charge of finances, somebody may be challenging that. Somebody may want some of that. On the flip side, there can also be a sense of making more money because you're working more. Venus rules your 5th house of children and pleasure, and it also rules your 10th house of career. So it makes me feel like if you're making more time for your hobbies or your side hustle or your side business, it also can be bringing you so much opportunity to make more money and maybe just have an abundance of work. That's the other way that I can look at it. This very same day, we're going to see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter, and that'll be taking place in the sign of Aries in your natal 4th house of home and family. Now, the sun does deal with death, regeneration, joint resources, estates, things in regards to inheritance or spousal money that you share. And Jupiter is about foreign lands, things in regards to being abroad, things that were hidden or subconscious. So once again, I'm seeing another theme. Capricorn, are you taking over a parent's estate? Did you just inherit a home? Are you, expanding your home in some capacity? If you are, it looks like it's very positive. And it also looks to me like these changes that are happening within the home or the family or the domestic zone are good, but they're very private. They're very hidden. So there's something that's like, not everybody is seeing in regards to these changes. It might be that you're renovating the house, but it's not visible from the outside. It's something that's going on like in one of the back rooms, and you're not totally tearing the outside of the house apart, but you're making some expansion within the inner part. Also, the sun coming into conjunction with Jupiter can represent expansions and additions to the family. So you might find out people are moving in, people are moving close by, people just bought a new home, somebody's having a baby, and so there is positive news that might be coming from your home base, but it's coming from either far away or these secrets are starting to emerge in terms of some of the exciting news that's coming. Then we have on the 14th of the month, Venus in Gemini is coming into a square with Saturn in Pisces. Now, this is important because Saturn rules your chart. So when you have squares, there's definitely going to be this feeling of some challenges or some conflict. It might actually materialize as you being the one that says no. No, thank you, not happening, like not today. Saturn in the 3rd house is about contracts, communications, ideas. Yes, issues with siblings, maybe even issues with neighbors, and difficult conversations that you may either have to have with people at work or possibly with siblings. I do feel like there's some conflict going on with you and another woman, and I don't know if it's family or somebody in the workplace, but somebody is going to be kind of testing you a little bit. It's important to stand your ground and not let somebody take advantage of you, and be mindful that, especially in the workplace, not everybody is going to be your best friend. This will be a quick moving transit. I would not advise doing any health treatment, any beauty treatments. I would not advise doing any services to vehicles or buying any gadgets on this day. Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to have a solar eclipse taking place in Aries, and this will be in your 4th house of home and family. This is the very first solar eclipse in a series of solar eclipses and lunar eclipses taking place in Aries and Libra. The truth is like, look, Capricorn, things are about to get real, okay? When the eclipse happens, it's going to be in your 4th house. So it's natally going to square your ascendant, you or your body. It's natally going to square your descendant, which represents other people. So there's action, solar eclipse, in your 4th house. With your emotions, with a parent, at home, with your living situation, something is going on, and it's going to be at 29 degrees. So it's on the cusp of your 5th. So there's some action at home prompting something that needs to begin before you get to the 5th house. For some of you guys, it could be moving, selling your house, buying a home, signing your first lease. But I do feel like there is some pressure. It's like, you got to do it. We got to do it now. And Saturn's in your 3rd house, which can also be an indication of movement. So the way that I see it is just watch for these changes at home. It can be stressful. It can be sudden. Jupiter will hit this degree. It will reactivate this degree in mid-May, and the North Node will hit this degree in July. So it might mean that you know a move is coming, you know family is coming to visit you, you know you have to return home and spend some time with them over the summer, right? Any of these things can kind of go on. My concern about this particular eclipse is that, number one, it's putting pressure on your sign. So especially if you're like a 27 to 29 degree Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, you're feeling this. But this eclipse is going to square Pluto. So it's bringing up power struggles, financial power struggles involving the control, the ownership that you have, maybe your financial goals, and that of your home, your roommates, your family, your partners. There is a sense of maybe kind of going back and forth with something that other people want that you have control over, something that other people are telling you you should or you should not be having access to or be kind of managing. There can be power struggles with relatives over property or homes as well. My advice is to just take a breath. Everybody's going to have this eclipse, and it's all going to square Pluto for all of us in one way. This particular eclipse is ushering in this energy of the Pluto square, the nodes, which will be effective pretty much April all the way until July. Pluto in the 2nd house is about power, financial power and control and growth, and what you're willing to do in order to kind of have your own home, your own bank account, your own security, the list goes on. Then the next day on the 21st, we're going to see Mercury turn retrograde in Taurus. So this retrograde will go from April 21st to May the 14th. It will retrograde from 15 degrees of Taurus all the way to 5 degrees of Taurus. And a retrograde in the 5th house means we're reevaluating, what do I love? What are my hobbies? What's going on with my children? What direction am I going in with taking chances? Do I want to take a step back from dating? Am I getting back into it? Am I pregnant? Do I love this person? Do I love this thing? Do I want to invest in this stock? Is it too risky, right? And Mercury rules the 6th house of health, routine, and pets, and it also rules the 9th house of belief and education and travel. So I think there can be a sense of you going like, do I have time in my schedule to take the kids on a vacation, right? Do I have time in my schedule to take a new college course or a workshop or to take on a second job? Do I have all of the facts and information I need in regards to my health? Do I need to go and get a checkup before I'm deciding to get pregnant and have a kid? Do I need assistance doing that? All of these things can kind of come up with a Mercury retrograde here. It is possible you might hear back from an old lover, right? Mercury retrograde can definitely bring them back in the 5th house. You have to ask yourself, is there still love there? Is that something that you want? Do you want to hold on to that, or do you want to let that go? And, at least it's happening in positive aspects to your ascendant, and it's going to sextile Saturn. So it's going to help you really kind of tune into your emotions and better communicate. It's also going to sextile Mars in your 7th. So the truth is like lots of change can happen in your home zone, with your relationships, with your communication, as long as you're asking yourself, like, do I love this? That's what I would be asking myself regularly. You can have some kids that are acting up. You may be also questioning whether or not you need to make some changes with your child's education, or whether or not it's time to move in or out of a situation with another person. Let's see what the cards have to say for you, Capricorn. The card that I get for you is the Seven of Wands. This is a positive card. Standing your ground, which is what I told you. Boundaries, defending your position, challenge, perseverance, protectiveness, and protecting your territory, right? Stay in your lane. You might be telling other people, stay in your lane. First off, mind your business, right? You might have to say that to some people. I think that this is really great advice for you, because I feel like this whole month is a lot of like protecting what you value or what you love, and being really cautious about how you let people have access to you, right? And I think it's standing up for yourself, especially with Saturn making aspects to the retrogrades and to Mars, standing up for yourself and saying, no, thank you, not today, I don't think so. And even if that means that you have to tell people you're not ready to communicate, it could be that as well. But for the most part, Seven of Wands does not back down. There are challenges, but you end up kind of like defending your position and not letting other people kind of push you around. So there's a way to do that without being confrontational. I like Saturn and Pisces in your third house because it makes me feel like there's a way to communicate and also be very stern about when you're no longer communicating and you're finished having a conversation. Good luck, Capricorn. We have now got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's going on, guys? I hope you're doing well. We are going to be starting off the month of April by taking a look at Mercury's ingress into Taurus. Now, this will be taking place in your natal fourth house of home and family. So the truth is, there's a lot going on this month for you, Aquarius, okay? Mercury rules your eighth house of change and transformation, death and regeneration, and the fifth house of money, children. It can be money, it can be your investments. But I actually see joint resources being the eighth house and fifth house being children or lovers. So I think the theme is going to be, what do I give my kids? What do I give my romantic partners? What am I getting in exchange? You know, where are there changes going on with where my kids are living or where my significant other is living, where I'm living? That could happen. Mercury entering into the fourth house will bring more communication with relatives. It will bring a need to reorganize cabinets and kitchens. Maybe you're traveling home to visit family. Maybe you have kids coming to stay with you. Maybe you're reevaluating what it would cost to make a change in your home or to relocate. If you guys are looking at properties, you might be inspecting homes, or you might be considering signing leases. Before any of that, okay, Mercury goes retrograde at the end of the month. So my advice is that if you have to sign a lease, you better do it before the 21st, or if you can, do it before the 6th. Obviously, I know we can't stop our life because of a Mercury retrograde, but just trust me on this because of some of the aspects. All right, so Mercury enters Taurus. You're talking about money, resources, home, family. Maybe you're reorganizing things. Maybe you're looking at some changes going on with certain relatives. That's great, but right off the bat, it's squaring Pluto in your sign. So it means that family members are challenging your control, your power, and what you have to say. This is tricky because as Mercury comes into contact with the North Node, it means that kids are going to be telling you, this is how I feel, this is where I'm moving. Relatives are going to be saying, this is how much the house is worth, and this is how much you owe me, or you're going to be finding out, this is how much your taxes are going to be this year on your property, whatever. And you're like, what? Like, can I change this? Do I have control over this? And the lesson here is to just breathe, because there are some changes that are going on with relatives. And guess what? You can't control all of them, nor do you want to. This is ushering in the energy for the next several months. So whether you look at the eclipse that's going to square Pluto in the spring, when Jupiter squares Pluto in your sign, the ongoing Pluto nodal squares, you're realizing that you are changing, okay? And you can't change your partners, you can't change your family, you can only change yourself, and you can only change your outlook and how you choose to engage with other people. So just breathe. Mercury square Pluto makes me feel like yeah, you're having some conversations about who controls what within the home. And you can have some kids or romantic partners that are just really talking back and kind of pushing their luck with you. On the 11th, we're going to see Venus enter into the sign of Gemini. So at least Venus going into the 5th house is bringing love from romantic partners and children. It's bringing more pleasure in your romance. It's bringing more opportunities for date night and really being able to just feel connected to your creative self. Equally, it's going to be in a fellow sister air sign. So you're going to be experiencing Venus trine Pluto or Venus trine your ascendant. I love this for you because you're going to realize like, I just love you so much and I will wish the best for you. Even if you don't want to hear what I have to say, I still love you anyway. So it may be a time where you have to kind of just grind your teeth, bite your tongue, and just say bless your heart to certain people. But equally, it can be a time where you're falling in love with someone or something. So it can be the birth of a child. Right? It can be a new romantic partner. It can be a new hobby. It can be a book you're reading, a podcast you're listening to. Venus loves being in the 5th house. So Venus in Gemini is wonderful if you're a writer, if you're a poet, if you're a musician, if you're a performer. It's really helping you channel all of this intense Pluto energy into your craft. This very same day, we're going to see the sun come into conjunction with Jupiter. So it's a very positive day. The sun rules relationships and partners. Jupiter obviously has to deal with resources and friends. Maybe you have friends that are telling you how much they love you. You're getting really positive feedback. This is a wonderful time to consider like launching a podcast, starting to write a book, launching a website, posting a special, really making a statement online, because I think you're going to get a lot of recognition. And I think it could also be very, very lucrative if you're launching right around this time. The Sun-Jupiter conjunction in the 3rd could also be a new vehicle. It could be planning a trip, getting out of town, buying a new gadget. It can even just be just a really amazing conversation you have with a friend, or maybe a getaway that you're doing with a friend or a romantic partner. Now then on the 14th of the month, Venus in Gemini is going to come into a square with Saturn. Tricky. Saturn in the 2nd house, you got to watch your spending. You're really focusing on your self-esteem. You're learning to be more conservative with your resources. You're not just kind of letting things go freely. And Venus in the 5th house can be a female child. It can be a romantic partner. It can be a potential investment opportunity, and it might mean that you have to say no. No, I'm sorry, I'm not investing in this. No, I'm actually not in love with you. I'm not interested. No, I'm not giving you an advance on your allowance, that kind of stuff. And having to say no to somebody that you really love, but knowing that saying no is like the best for them. Because you're not going to indulge in them. Or it can be that person that comes in that's very tempting in a romantic sense, and you're like, no, been there, done that. I'm not opening myself back up to you again. I'm not taking that risk, right? Tough love. That's the Saturn-Venus square is tough love. And it may also be saying no to something speculative. And it may look like a good investment, but you might be like, yeah, that's not happening. On the 20th of the month, we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries, and that's going to be the very first eclipse in a series of eclipses in the signs of Aries and Libra that are going to be starting up in preparation for the nodal changes in the summertime. Now, an eclipse in your 3rd house, particularly a solar eclipse, is active. So we're getting around town in the 3rd house, we're starting to write something, we're learning something. Maybe we're planning a trip, maybe we're buying a vehicle, we're just really focusing on sharing our mind or our ideas, right? So solar eclipses are brand new energy. This is the 2nd new moon in Aries. We had one last month and it was at 0 degrees. This one's at 29. So the universe really wants us to do our work in the area of Aries, right? Eclipses, new moons, Jupiter, it's like so active. Aries naturally sextiles Aquarius. So you're going to just feel this chattiness, this communication, new opportunities for contracts might emerge, and just communicating more positively and optimistically with your partners, your friends, or maybe even with your siblings or your neighbors. yeah, I think it's a day where really anything goes. A partner might talk to you about planning a trip, or you might go and decide that you want to look at buying a new car, right? New gadgets can come here as well, but I would really reserve this as a time where if you want to launch a website, a podcast, a YouTube channel, this can actually be a wonderful time to do that. And you're just feeling really optimistic about the future. Here's the challenge, is that it's on the cusp of your 4th house. So it might insinuate that there is an impending move, that there is an impending shift with your home base, with your family. And this eclipse is squaring Pluto. So eclipses in the 3rd can bring up stuff with siblings. And siblings may be challenging your power or, you know, some kind of communication. It's difficult for everybody because everybody's going to have the square, and I keep trying to explain to everybody that even the eclipse in Aries is going to have us looking at Aries. Those new beginnings are being set forth because of Pluto. So I actually think it's about you changing the way you communicate, changing the way that you think, changing the way that you see the world and speak to other people. You're learning to channel your power or your creative abilities in a completely different way, and you're reinventing yourself. So I would really advise you to be journaling, be writing, be sharing what you're thinking with other people, and it can be a way to really step into your power. But nevertheless, like, this eclipse may prompt a feeling of you wanting to snap. And I would say when you feel that come forward, take a breath, especially if you're kind of having a heated exchange with somebody who may happen to be a relative or a neighbor, because that can happen. Try to avoid conflict and de-escalate if at all possible, because eclipses in the 3rd house in Aries is like fighting words, you know? Then we are going to see that very same day, the sun will then enter into your 4th house, and it'll be there for about 3 weeks or so, shining a light on your home, your family, and your domestic zone. So it's not just a, you know, solar eclipse square Pluto, it's sun square Pluto, sun conjunct the node, something involving a parent, something involving your home base, having to be at home, being around home and family, that kind of playing out. The very next day on the 21st, we're going to have a Mercury retrograde. Okay, so Mercury is going to turn retrograde in the sign of Taurus. It'll start on April 21st. It's going to go retrograde all the way until the 14th of May, and it'll retrograde back from 15 to 5 degrees of Taurus. So here's the challenge. Taurus naturally squares your sign. So there's going to be a sense of, oh, we're moving, or we're reorganizing a garage, or there's something going on with a parent. And the 4th house is ends of matters. So being that Mercury rules the 8th and it rules the 5th, it looks like you're communicating with your children about changes in the home, changes with the parent. Touch wood, there can be transitions in the family because the 4th house does deal with the ends of matters or burial. So it can be about having to go back home for a family funeral and, you know, trying to communicate with people about the changes that are going on within the home and the family. I hope not, but that is possible. And when the retrograde starts on the 21st, it's going to be in conjunction to Uranus, which is your chart ruler, and the moon. So it tells me that you're going to be the one initiating, kind of like having the family meeting or having the meeting with the roommates, or being the one who's going, I'm moving out, or I'm moving on, or I'm leaving. And it has a lot to do with you. So literally watch the day that it starts. The shadow begins on the 6th. So you're going to start seeing anything from the 6th to the 21st, some of these themes playing out equally. This will go retrograde in the degrees that will be exactly opposite the incoming early May lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. So it makes me feel like some of these changes that are going on with home, relocation, family, taking care of parents, a month from now will impact your career, your work. You know, if you're grieving the loss of a parent, or if you're having to close on a house and relocate, it may impact what you're doing work-wise. So just a heads up, okay? I know this is some heavy stuff, but the squares to Pluto and Aquarius is so personal, and it's about learning to just drop what you can't control. And the retrograde in conjunction to Uranus is also trying to get you in contact more with your roots, your intuition, your family, and trying to make sense of some of the changes that are going on in your home zone. Let's take a look and see what card you get for the month ahead. The card that I get is the Queen of Wands. This is a great card. There can be stuff going on, right? With Aries, Leos, Sagittariuses. So watch these signs, they can pop up. She's confident, independent. She's a social butterfly, creative, self-assured, passionate, determined, charismatic, vivacious, and optimistic. So maybe it's about channeling those energies and being like, yeah, this is difficult, but at least I get a fresh start. You know, I get to start over somewhere, or at least I have a new opportunity to renovate a home, or there may be some difficult things coming together, but it's bringing my family together. So it's all about how you look at it. Fire signs are about life, right? And so the element of Wands is about what you create, what you make of it. So I think the one thing I would keep asking myself is, okay, what am I going to make of it, right? I'm going to be honest, life's going to feel a little messy. Okay? You're really going to feel this the next 6 months. But life is messy. Things happen. Things are not perfect. We come here to be able to work through some of this stuff and learn how to kind of like have this human experience, but we're spiritual beings. So things are going to feel a little discombobulated. You may find that there's opportunities for revivals of spaces, relationships, and connections to family in the midst of what can be some turbulent times. But it's only then you realize like what family is really for, right? So be a part of what you're creating and what you're embracing rather than freaking out about what's changing around you and what you cannot control. Stay optimistic and stay active. Good luck. All right, so we have got Pisces and Pisces rising. What's going on, guys? I always say you're the real MVPs. I know so many Pisces risings that tell me that they don't just skip ahead to their timestamp, they'll listen to all of them, which I think is that's so Pisces of you guys. If you do that, let me know. So this is going to be the April month ahead, just to give you guys some insight in terms of what will be coming for the transits this month. I want to start first with the 3rd of April when we see Mercury enter into the sign of Taurus in your natal 3rd house. Okay, so first of all, Mercury likes being in the 3rd house, right? It's got this natural kind of Gemini vibe. So we change our mind, we move around, we drive around, we travel, we go out for a walk in the neighborhood, we read books, we learn things. It's about gadgets. It's great. So you're going to really like this energy, especially as all these planets are starting to form sextiles to Saturn in your sign. So it's kind of like with the new goals that you have for yourself or the new boundaries or commitments to yourself or alone time, you're saying, what am I investing my time and energy into? What am I reading? What am I learning? What YouTube videos am I watching? So maybe you're trying to teach yourself something about finances, about gardening, about cooking, about investing, right? So Mercury rules relationships and family. So when Mercury comes into your 3rd house, maybe you're focusing on your relationships with your neighbors, your relationships with your aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings. Maybe you're talking to them more. Maybe you're traveling to go and meet them and interact with them, right? Which is great. But the challenge is right off the bat, Mercury comes into a square Pluto. So it's almost like, especially if you're traveling, right? If you're traveling and you're in a foreign place, you're like, I don't understand the currency. I may not understand the language. Getting around, calling an Uber, all of these things is kind of like overwhelming because the 12th house can deal with foreign lands and Pluto rules your 9th. It can also represent studying or, higher education and trying to learn the lingo. So whether you're going through a new college course or you're taking your own kind of course on the side, or maybe you're learning a language and working with an app, there is a sense of like, oh, this is agitating. I don't know if I follow, right? There's things that you don't quite understand yet. So be mindful of that. Traveling can be stressful. There can be some unexpected hiccups with travel, especially involving vehicles or just kind of getting around town. They can prove to be unreliable. And there can be some very intense conversations that you can have with siblings even in regards to your belief systems and exchanges that you're having with them. It's a quick moving transit. The other way I could see this is that there are some power struggles or issues communicating, talking with a partner about moving and where you would live and where you're going. And you might kind of feel like you need some more time to make up your mind. All right, so then on the 11th of the month, Venus is going to enter into the sign of Gemini. So Venus moves into your home zone. I like this transit. It makes me feel like it's going to make your home more comfortable. Buying new furniture, finding a new place, having a woman come to stay or visit with you, bringing some art in, things like that is definitely possible with Venus in your 4th house. Family relationships can get better, it can improve, and it can also be really positive for anything in regards to transformations within the home. Venus rules your 8th house, Libra, so it might mean that a partner is saying, I'm buying new bedding, I'm going to paint the walls, I'm going to, kind of change things around a little bit. Or that a sister or a female relative or a neighbor is willing to come and help you make changes within the home space, right? So usually Venus in the 4th is like very beautiful and comfortable. This same day, we're going to see that Venus is going to trine Pluto. So it might mean that somebody is inviting you to come stay and visit with them. They're opening their home to you. It might mean that there is a huge transformation in regards to love and resources. And we've got really powerful trines happening in like water houses. So like the 4th, 8th, and 12th house kind of all getting intertwined. It makes me feel like it can be about endings in regards to relationships, learning to let them go, learning to heal, and making changes in our family relationships. On the flip side, because Venus trine Pluto can be about having a communication or a connection with somebody abroad or in a foreign place and feeling very drawn to them, feeling very connected to them, and almost like super fixated with just talking to them and going back and forth and just being like very intrigued by somebody who you connect with. That's possible. Intuition can be high, so, dabbling in the esoteric, tarot, astrology, all of that stuff. Because of Venus's connection to the 3rd house and the trine to Pluto in the 12th, you may be very fascinated by something that you're learning and trying to develop more of your intuition. This very same day, we're going to see Jupiter and the Sun come together in the sign of Aries in your 2nd house. And this is like big dollar signs, okay? So the Sun-Jupiter conjunction is important because Jupiter is one of your co-ruling planets. So Jupiter does deal with wealth and abundance in the 2nd house of your own personal possessions. And it's going to conjunct the Sun. So it tells me that maybe the abundance is an overabundance of work, an overabundance of scheduling, of support, of, clients, busy things. It can also be that health is improving. It can mean that there is a really significant check or payout or gift that you end up getting. Maybe you make a significant purchase in some capacity, but maybe the purchase is for your health. Maybe the purchase is for a pet. Maybe it's, buying new things for your office space. Maybe it's investing that money into a business, right? Jupiter does have connections to your career. So I think that the money that's coming isn't just coming easily. It's something that you had to work for, but there is a sense of pride because, there is some kind of fulfillment. So I do think that Jupiter-Sun conjunctions, Jupiter-Venus conjunctions can be really lucrative in the 2nd house. So it looks good for finances. Then on the 14th, we're going to see Venus continue to move through Gemini in your natal 4th house, and it comes into a square with Saturn in your sign. So it can be a relative, a female, a romantic partner, somebody who's like in your space and they're saying like, oh, do you like the art that I bought? Do you like the new couch? Do you like the throw pillows? Like, how do you like the way that, these cookies taste? And you're like, I don't like it. Because it's squaring Saturn in your sign. So there can be some sense of like somebody or something trying to appease you and you're like, it's not good enough. I'm not open to it, like kind of grouchy with Saturn in your sign, or just kind of like leave me alone, like I want my space. So if somebody is in your space, just be mindful. You can be kind of like Oscar the Grouch, try to be open and warm and realize that part of what's going on is there is some sense of people wanting to bring you the gift of partnership or wanting to kind of have chit chat, and they want to kind of communicate with you and talk to you about your feelings or your home. So try not to be too prickly, okay? It might also be a time where you don't really know what you want in terms of design. You know, down the road, later in April, we're going to see Venus square Neptune. So there can be a sense of like, if you do hire an interior designer or a decorator or an architect, you know, a couple weeks from now, you're like, I don't like any of this. So I would really wait. Even though Venus is trine Pluto, I would wait until Venus gets into Cancer and it's trining Saturn, or I would wait until Mercury is coming into a trine with Saturn, or after the Mercury retrograde, right? Then on the 20th of the month, we're going to have a solar eclipse. That solar eclipse is also going to be in Aries, in your second house of money and income. And solar eclipses bring action, endings and beginnings. Things happen out of the blue, out of nowhere. So this is the very first eclipse in a series of eclipses that will be in Aries and Libra. And it's ushering us into this nodal change in July. So solar eclipse is taking into consideration your sixth house lord, health, and sometimes delays. Sometimes it's about support. Sometimes it's about food, health in the second house, mixing with the moon. So there is some sense of being like, okay, I'm investing my time, my energy, my resources into making more money, being creative, and like coming up with a schedule that works for me. I do think some of you guys might change what you're eating. I do think some of you guys may start really focusing on developing new talent, so that way you can find more ways of being able to increase your stream of income and profit. We had a new moon here already. So last month there was a new moon. This is the second new moon. So it's a black moon, solar eclipse, conjunct Jupiter. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about conjunct Jupiter, which is great if you're a Sag or a Pisces rising, but actually Jupiter will be invisible. So there's something being seeded that you're not going to see until closer to, you know, May through July, right? When Jupiter activates that degree and the North Node activates that degree. So it's coming. It means the resources, the financial support is coming just a little bit down the road. So, you know, if you need to do money or abundance magic, this is definitely the time. My concern is that this is an eclipse that's going to square Pluto. So it tells me even though you're working hard and you're focusing on your financial goals and you're putting in the work and you're really bringing in money, there can be things that come out of the blue that you don't see coming within the financial markets or in regards to transacting with people overseas, right? Pluto in the 12th, or changes in technology or business or law that impact how you make money, how you spend money, what you can buy, right? These kinds of things. So be mindful for that. You know, everybody's going to get hit with the Pluto square. I've been telling all of the 12 signs that Pluto will be in a square with the North and the South node really all the way through the summertime. So even though this is an eclipse in your money house, there is subconscious fears or delays or setbacks or things that are going on in the world that are going to start impacting how you make money. Maybe it's your intuition and like there's something kicking in and you're like, I need to be really careful. There's some weird stuff happening in the world financially. I need to make as much money as I can to reinvest it or save it, because you're tapping into your intuition. There is like alarm bells going off for you intuitively. On the 21st, we're then going to see Mercury turn retrograde in the sign of Taurus. It'll be in your third house. Now, Mercury rules home. Mercury rules others, relationships, partners, clients. So Mercury retrograde in the third. Be mindful of a vehicle, be mindful of cars, gadgets, laptops, cell phones. There can be all kinds of problems with these things. You are one of the signs that I would really recommend. Like if you don't have to move, if you don't have to buy a new phone, if you don't have to buy a new car, don't. Try to do all of these things if you absolutely must before the 6th or the 21st. The 6th is when the shadow starts. 21st is when it goes retrograde. I wouldn't do any of these things, actually. I feel like if you need to get a new car, if you need to move, if you need to get a desktop computer, a laptop, phone, wait until May when Jupiter goes into your third house. Because I feel like you may make an excessive purchase, you might get a better deal down the road, you might buy something in the shadow and it's glitchy, it has problems. Mercury going retrograde in the third does spell issues with contracts, delays with moves, problems with vehicles, issues in regards to online banking, applications. And when Mercury turns retrograde, it'll come into conjunction with Uranus and also the moon. So that means that there may be like a sudden uncomfortable conversation, or an app crashes, or a car breaks down, or there's an electrical issue with a vehicle, right? Your neighbor goes crazy, or your partner gets into an argument with your sister because of the connection between Mercury with your 7th and your 4th house. So conflict between partners and siblings, or how you're communicating with a partner. Mercury will retrograde from 15 degrees back to 5 degrees of Taurus. The good news is that it is going to sextile Saturn. So you staying cool, calm, collected, focused, knowing when to communicate, when to speak, when to take a step back is really going to help. Your ability to be really serious and kind of focused, and knowing, when to not say something. Mercury retrograde represents a changing of our mind. And in the 3rd house, it's like, actually, no, I don't want to sell my car. No, I don't think I want to live here anymore. I don't think I want to spend money this way anymore. But it can bring people back. So if you've had miscommunications with people on social media, if you've stopped posting videos on your YouTube, or if you took a break from social media, you may go back, or vice versa. Miscommunications with siblings are possible. I would just say, if you don't have to sign anything, move, or buy anything, you might want to just wait a little bit, especially considering this retrograde is happening preemptively before an early May lunar eclipse in Scorpio in the 9th house, which could prompt legal issues. It could prompt travel issues. So if you know that there is an opportunity to negotiate something and alleviate the potential of having to have a lawsuit, if you know you're going on a trip and you're going to need an ID or a passport, do it before the retrograde. If you know that you need to send in documents or sign something, right, do it before the retrograde, because that eclipse is going to go off and it can create some challenges. Even though it's going to be in a friendly sign, lunar eclipses in Scorpio are not easy, and it's going to oppose Uranus. And I feel like some of you guys are going to have either legal issues, car problems, or issues getting documents. So if you know you need a passport or any of these things, do it now. Don't wait, because guess what? You may not be able to get it, or there will be a delay, okay? Let's take a look and let's see what the cards say for you for the month of April, my Pisces. Oh, again, 9 of Swords. Somebody else got this. Who was it? I forget. So anxiety, depression, isolation, nightmares, paranormal negativity, worry, stress. This is what I see with this card. Okay, so a Mercury retrograde in the 3rd, our mind feels kind of scrambled. There is a sense of being like, is it okay? Is it going to work? Is it going to be fine? What's going to happen? Lean on Saturn in your sign. I need you guys to be like a stone. You're not movable, right? It doesn't mean you don't have emotions, but you need to stay solid, because when things feel topsy-turvy, you need to know that you're grounded. So take baths, go swimming, be in nature, meditate, right? Check in with your emotions and just focus on just being solid. That's the best advice I can give you. Yeah, there can be some stress about where you're going to be living, or some stress about what somebody's going to say, or whether or not they're going to accept the offer, or if you're going to, get the lease. But worrying is not going to help you. And the truth is that it will not be until early May, when the sun comes into conjunction with Mercury and we have the Cazimi moment, that there is this aha moment, right? So I think a lot of this is either about family or moving, honestly, because the ruler of, or the dispositor of all these planets in Taurus is Venus, and Venus is in the 4th. So it seems to be about living or home or car situations. And until we start to see that Cazimi come through in a month, only then we're going to know. The 3rd house is breathing, it's lungs. It might be helpful for you guys to be doing some breath work, right? That can really help you, or be going for a walk or doing some journaling. These are all 3rd house things that can be really helpful in moving through some of these heavier energies if need be. Good luck. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me. I really appreciate you guys listening to my horoscopes, really taking in what I have to say. I hope it's helpful for you, because I feel like there's just so many pivotal shifts that are coming in the month of April, that being prepared for some of this stuff can be really helpful, and you'll kind of have this aha moment when these things show up. Look forward to me putting more out there. I'm definitely going to do a real deep dive into the Mercury retrograde, talk about some of the major aspects, what we might be expecting in the next couple of weeks. We will also be touching on the eclipses. I have a presentation I'm putting together for you guys as well. Please do not forget to give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below, especially if you're new to my channel. Let me know where you're tuning in from, how you're feeling with these energies. I read everybody's messages. I don't always get a chance to respond because there has been so much growth in the channel, but I just want to say thank you. And if you guys like my style, you want to book a reading with me, go to my website below and you can find my availability live on my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. If things get crazy, you can catch me here on Friday nights. We'll be doing live readings actually tomorrow. So if you're watching this on the 30th, tomorrow on Friday, hello, I don't even know what today is. Yeah, tomorrow on Friday, I'm going to be doing live readings at 5 o'clock. We're going to be doing tarot. So you guys can check in with me throughout the month if you need some cosmic assistance. I'm always happy to help. All right, that's it for me. Good luck with the retrograde. Good luck with the eclipses. May Sky Daddy be with all of us. And I will see all of you guys next month. Take care.